And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Clark versus Bruni. Step forward, please.
21-year-old student Elizabeth Clark is suing 21-year-old student Callie Bruni for the unpaid balance on a trip to Cancun.
I gather that you and a friend decided to take a trip to Mexico, a vacation to Mexico. Is that right?
Yes.
And you prepaid the trip, and shortly before you were supposed to leave, you got sick.
Yes.
Mono?
Yes.
Somehow there was an arrangement made with the defendant to take your place on the trip. You claim she paid you some money for the trip, but still owes you a substantial amount.
That's correct.
So when were you scheduled to leave on the trip?
March 8th.
When did you get sick?
February 14th. I was hospitalized March 1st through the 6th.
And at what point did it become non-refundable?
I'm not exactly sure.
Well, it becomes non-refundable. Certainly you would agree that by February 14th, when you got sick, it was non-refundable.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
So you stood to lose all of your money, right?
Yes.
Now tell me what the arrangements were with the defendant.
The arrangements were, when I was in the hospital, between my witness Shannon and Callie, that she was going to pay me money before I left.
Just a minute. So you never had a discussion with the defendant?
No, I did not.
Your witness did?
Yes, she did.
Step up. Tell me your name.
Shannon Powers.
You were supposed to go on the trip
With
Miss
Beth.
Clark.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you do? You contacted the defendant?
Yes, I did.
Okay. She was a friend of yours?
Yep.
Was she a friend of yours?
No.
Go ahead.
I kind of struggled around to find someone to go because we both stood to lose a lot of money. And the agreement...
Right, because it was non-refundable.
Yep.
Right.
The agreement between Callie and myself was she would give or send Beth a check or money for $400 and then pay her the remainder of the $574 in the summer when she started working.
Was that your agreement?
No.
Let me hear what your agreement was.
The agreement was $700. My parents gave $400, and I thought the agreement was that Shannon's parents gave $100 for me, and then that I was paying Beth $200 in the summer. I would never agree to pay that $978 when she was going to lose all her money.
How much did you receive altogether so far for this trip?
$400.
$400. And where did the other $100 come from?
From my parents, but I guess they never sent it. I was not aware of that.
Why were your parents going to send Miss Clark another $100?
Because Callie agreed to give me $500, and then she didn't have a license, and she had to get back from New York to Connecticut because she didn't have a passport, and she had to spend the money, the $100, to get back to Connecticut to get her IDs and stuff.
Okay, so you were going to give her parents back the $100?
No. My parents would only give me $400, and Beth's mom would not take the $400. She said $500.
Are you telling me that you actually gave her $500 or $400?
$400, but...
All right, so you still owe her $3. Miss Clark, you never had a conversation with nor a contract with the defendant. Is that right?
Before she left, I did not have contact with her.
Right, so you had no contract with her, right?
Right.
You had no agreement with her whatsoever.
It was between them. But I had a friend who was willing to go instead of Callie before she...
I don't know that. Where's your friend who was willing to go?
I have a document.
I don't read documents. I don't read documents. I mean, you're in the hospital. You stand to lose $974. You took out no insurance to prevent you from losing all this money. I mean, I don't see anybody spending the full amount of the trip. If she knows you're going to lose all of your money, that's not the way people usually operate. They usually operate, well, I'll go on short notice, but I'm not going to spend $1,000 on a trip. She didn't have $1,000. She only had $400. Aside from the fact you didn't have a contract with her.
But that was the agreement that I understood, that she was to pay me money when she got back from the trip.
Yeah.
She paid me $400 and I expected the rest. I worked 2 jobs over my winter break trying to pay for this trip. And I wouldn't have let somebody go on my trip for $700 that I worked 2 jobs for and then I paid for in full.
Next time you take a trip, you should have some insurance.
I never thought that I was going to get sick.
Absolutely. That's why people take out insurance. In any event, you had no contract with the defendant. As far as she was concerned, well, she got a little mixed up with the $100. I guess she figured your mother was going to give her $100 so that you wouldn't lose all your money and therefore you wouldn't go away on this trip alone.
Yeah.
You still owe her $300. Why haven't you paid her?
I was going to pay her the $200 because I never knew that
That her
parents-
mother didn't give the $100.
Yes.
All right.
So
but-
I was going to pay her the $200, and then I get in the mail that she's trying to get $530 from me.
So you gave her nothing?
Right.
Well, why didn't you give her at least what you thought you owed her?
Because I knew I had to go to court anyways.
Okay. Well, you owe her $300. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Better. 37-year-old trucker John Staley says during a visit with his sister, 38-year-old customer service rep Terry Thompson, she attacked him with a hammer. John says Terry lied to police and had him arrested for domestic violence.
Mr. Staley, the defendant is your sister.
Yes, ma'am.
And according to your complaint, she filed a false police report causing you to be arrested, spending a day in jail. Those charges were subsequently dismissed, but you want her to pay for your lost wages.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right? When did this incident occur that caused you to be arrested?
August 9th,
And where did it take place?
at the defendant's home of residence.
What were you doing there?
On August 9th, I came home to my home, and I found my niece, my oldest niece, on the phone. I
Your
asked
oldest
her-
niece is your daughter?
Yes.
Go ahead.
She was calling people on the phone, and she advised me that her car had broken down. She didn't have any money on her, and she needed help getting the car towed to get the car fixed. And she asked for my assistance. At the point, I didn't really have any money, but as we were discussing this, the tow truck showed up at my residence. So I told Lori to go with the tow truck driver to go get the car, have the vehicle towed, and I would go to the bank, withdraw money to pay for the towing. And Lori needed to go back to her mother's house, so I took Lori back to her mother's house, and that's what I was doing there.
And what happened when you got there?
I walked with Lori upstairs to the apartment. I stayed in the hallway.
Your Honor.
of the-
Don't put your hand up yet. You'll have an opportunity to tell me your side of the story.
I stayed in the hallway while Lori went in and got her things, and there was a discussion that Terry made about that I owed her an apology over an incident that took place 2 years ago.
Have you spoken to your sister since?
I haven't spoken to my sister since February or March of this year.
But you were outside in the hallway.
I was in the hallway of the apartment.
She came out to the hallway
Yes, she did.
to tell you
She
that
wanted an apology, and she made some statements, and I told her she needed to get her facts straight on that issue. But I wasn't going to apologize for this incident. It's 2 years old, and there was no need, and I felt I was in the right of that incident.
Okay.
And she told me to leave. And I tried telling her that I needed to take Lori back to get her car. And she said, "No, you're not." She demanded that I leave, and if I didn't leave, she was going to go in, get a hammer, and she was going to beat me with the hammer. And I said, "Fine." So I turned around. I started walking down the steps. I was on the second step when my sister tried shoving me down the stairs. As she was pushing for me from behind, I turned around with my arm. I raised my arm in defense, and at the same time, I tried to maintain my balance on the stairwell.
Had she gotten the hammer?
Not at that point. She got hysterical and everything. She started screaming out loud, and she ran back into her apartment. And I started walking down the stairs, and I was at the first turnaround. There's 3 flights of stairs, and there's a turnaround at one point, and that's when she emerged with the hammer from the apartment.
Did she come down the stairs to
Yes,
where
she
you
did.
were?
I started running down the stairs. I was at the bottom of the stairs when we came together, and she went to swing the hammer, and I put my hands up in a high blocking fashion, and the hammer caught my right forearm, and then I returned a kick to Terry, kicking her away from me, and this bought me a couple seconds to get out the door. Terry then chased me out the door, and I turned and I tossed my keys at Terry. I missed Terry, and my keys went into the bushes on the east side of the doorwell. And then she continued to swing the hammer, and she started yelling to her neighbors, "Call 911! I'm being assaulted!" as she was swinging the hammer.
Did you report this to the police?
Yes, I did.
When?
What happened was Lori came out, and I ended up taking Lori back to her car.
When did you report this to the police?
After I dropped my niece off at her car, I went straight to the sheriff's department.
And what happened when you got there?
They interviewed me, and I told them about the apology and
Told them the story.
told them the story. They said they had to talk to Terry about the hammer because she didn't originally tell them about the hammer. And they come back and they said she admitted to using the hammer and that I admitted to kicking her. And as far as they were concerned, this was mutual combat, and their policy is to take one of us to jail. They elected me because I was already there.
And subsequently the charges were dismissed.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me see your paperwork, please. Now, Miss Thompson, You tell me your version of these events, please.
He's been told several times, this would meaning the 5th time of this year, that he doesn't need to be over harassing me or coming over to my apartment. There's no reason for him to be over there since we do not get along. There's been a few domestic disputes in the past.
Whatever. Your daughter came home to gather some stuff. Your brother is standing outside in the hallway of your apartment. What happened from there?
Okay. Well, I buzzed my daughter to get in. I only seen my daughter get in.
Fine. Your brother is standing in the landing.
He pushed his way in my apartment.
Where was he in the apartment?
He was standing in the living room.
Is the living room as soon as you enter into the door?
Yep.
Fine. Okay. So he's standing in the living room. What happened next?
He was trying to say hi, and he was being very much agitating and aggressive. And I said, why are you here? You know, you don't get along. We don't get along.
What did he tell you?
He was very much trying to say hi,
No,
very
Miss Thompson.
jumping up and down.
Miss Thompson, pay careful attention to me.
Okay.
He was there because he had brought your daughter there, right?
He could have waited in the car.
Just a second. Answer my question.
Yes.
He was there because he brought your daughter there.
Yes.
And he was waiting for her.
No.
He took her back to get her car.
That's correct.
Right. She got her things, and eventually, after this altercation, she left with him. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, I want you to tell me about this hammer that you admit that you hit him with.
First, he punched me first before I got a chance.
Where did that take place?
It happened in the hallway.
What level of the staircase did it happen where he punched you?
On the 2nd level.
Was he in front of you or behind you?
He was in front of me.
What were you doing following him out of the building?
He was still agitating me the whole way.
What were you doing following him as he was leaving the building?
Your Honor, he's constantly over in my apartment.
I don't care about constantly over. I'm asking you, he's leaving. You told him to leave. He's on his way down the stairs.
Right, agitatingly.
Not agitating, leaving the building. Whether he's leaving the building and he's saying words to you or he's not saying words to you, he's leaving. If he was agitating you, you close your door to your apartment, you say, my goodness, I'm glad he's out of here. You close the door, case closed. What were you following him for?
To make sure I didn't want him to come back.
Oh. When did you get the hammer?
I got it out from my closet in my apartment.
What did you call the police for?
I've constantly called the police.
No, I don't care constantly. What did you call the police for today, that day?
Because he was over again at my apartment harassing me.
Miss Thompson, was your daughter moving out of your apartment? Is that why she came over?
No, she just wanted one thing, a paycheck. She was in there for a second and out.
So she just came home to get a paycheck, right?
Right.
When did she tell you that she was just there to get a paycheck?
She didn't even bother telling me.
She walked in the door and you said something.
He followed her up.
When your daughter walked in the house,
okay,
did she tell you what she was doing there?
No, first she said, John is behind me.
Fine.
And then he pushed his way in. And then she went to get her check to get him out of there.
That's not why she went to get her check. That is not why she went to get her check. She came to the house because she had to get a check. She asked him for a ride. He was not there uninvited by someone who lives in your house. Does your daughter live with you? Does your daughter live with you?
No, she doesn't.
Did she live with you then?
No.
Okay, but her check was in your home?
She came over to visit me, and the check was in her pants pocket, and she came back to pick up her check.
So she leaves clothes in your house?
There's times she visits.
So she leaves clothes in your house?
Yes.
So she invited him to drive her home. She walked in and said to you, John's behind me. Not John's behind me, he's stalking me. He followed me here in order to hurt you.
Yes, he did, Your Honor.
No, he didn't, Miss Thompson. Now, Miss Thompson, you told him to leave, and he was leaving. And your daughter was still upstairs. You're the one who gets agitated. Because you were following him down the stairs, you went upstairs, and you got a hammer.
And he couldn't stay in his car?
He could have stayed in his car.
Mm-hmm.
Sure he could have. That doesn't give you license to go and get a hammer and assault him with a hammer. That doesn't give you license to do that. He's not a stranger. It's not somebody that you don't know. You may not get along with your brother, Miss Thompson, but that doesn't give you license to pick up a deadly weapon and to use it. At all. And you're absolutely responsible for his lost day's wages, which in this case, all he's suing for is $134.84. You got it. Judgment for the plaintiff.
Parties are excused. You may step. This is case number 199 on the calendar in the matter of Malenfant versus Brooks. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Miss Malenfant, you are Miss Malenfant. Who are you?
Miss Malenfant.
She's my mom.
Mother. Why don't you have a seat? How old are you?
17.
The defendant is your father.
Yes.
And according to your complaint, you needed a car, and your father agreed to help you out with getting a car.
Mm-hmm.
He put down the down payment on the car with the understanding that you would make the monthly payments and keep up with the insurance.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I assume from your complaint that you followed through with your end,
Yes, I did.
and there came a point when he took back the car.
Yes.
When did he take back the car?
He repossessed the car on June 23rd, 2001.
And you say he had no basis to repossess the car, and you want all the monthly payments that you paid
Yes.
to a bank, I assume,
It was, yes, Home Financial Services.
for the time that you had the car.
Yes.
And that was $1,400 and...
$40.
So you had the car, did you have the car in October?
Yes.
October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June.
Yes.
You had the car really 9 months.
Yes.
Your father says you did not follow through with your responsibility. As a matter of fact, you owe him a substantial amount for the car. So, tell me what your arrangement was with your father.
On October 12th, we went in there. We both decided that I would agree to be responsible for the vehicle. He paid the $500 down payment. We also purchased insurance, and he paid $500 to the person who rebuilt the engine. While the car was in the shop, he did pay one car payment, and we both agree on that. He paid the $500 down payment and one car payment for...
Why did he make the car payment?
Because at the time, I was unaware that he even made the car payment.
Well, you didn't make the car payment.
No. I was trying to work, and he had let me use his vehicle while mine was in the shop. I have a daughter, and I didn't exactly have all the money to pay for it because...
So you didn't have the money, so he made
Yes.
the car payment in February.
Yes.
And what was the monthly payment?
It was $180 a month, but he only paid $170 that month.
Okay. Go ahead.
On May 1st, 2001, me and his wife had got into an argument. Words were exchanged. I said a couple of things, she said a couple of things, and then we started fighting. She headbutted me in the nose and broke my nose, and she hit me in the back of the neck with a picture frame. I moved out because they were on drugs very badly, and I couldn't take it anymore, and I didn't want my daughter to be around it, and I myself did not want to be around it. Me and him were still on good terms. We talked daily, and then probably 2 weeks after that, on May 16th, I got a message from him on my cell phone. I didn't answer the phone, but I listened to the message, and I didn't agree with the message at all. I have that recorded if you want to hear it.
I just want to know what the message said.
He said, if I leave her, what am I going to do about a woman? Are you going to help me out? Are you going to give me some?
That's not true, Your Honor.
I have the message if you want to hear it.
I don't have to listen to it. Go ahead.
I called the Department of Human Resources and spoke to someone named...
Where were you living at this time?
I was living with my mom. I guess he was mad because I called DHR on him about that, and he took the car from me.
Okay. Had you paid May's payment for the car?
Yes.
Okay, you have proof that you made...
I have proof of all the payments, yes.
Okay, what about the insurance? Was that all part of the 180?
Uh-huh. And I also have a check, a copy of the check that Virgil wrote to the man who rebuilt the engine, stating that he did pay for that. I don't have all the receipts. I mean, I didn't expect for this to
All the
happen.
receipts for what?
For the car payments that I made. I have probably 4 of them, but I didn't keep them all. I didn't expect to be here in this situation right now.
So you only have proof of making 4 payments?
Virgil gave me that paper. He highlighted all the payments that I made, and he signed at the bottom of it.
Well, I see here there was 1 month when you made a payment of $90, and then you made a payment of $80.
Yeah, that was, I would pay early sometimes because I would have the money at that time, and I decided to pay early sometimes.
No, you weren't paying early.
What day was that?
May 11th.
May 11th, I made a late payment, and they allowed me to they gave me 5 days of grace, I believe.
No. Instead of making a full car payment in May, you made a partial payment May 11th of $90.
Yes.
Then you made another payment on May 18th of $80.
Yes.
Okay, you say the payments are $180 a month, so 9 and 8 is 17, so that's $170. You were $10 short.
Okay.
Okay. Then you don't make any payment in June, the beginning of June at all. You make a payment June 22nd in the amount of $80.
Yes.
That's not responsible. Ms. Malenfant, I'm going to tell you why you have no basis for a lawsuit against your father. You have no basis for a lawsuit because you had this car for 9 months.
Yes.
And you say you made $1,440 worth of payments. That means that you paid $160 on average a month.
Okay.
You had the full use of a car for $160 a month for a period of 9 months.
Yes, ma'am.
You understand?
Yes.
You can't rent a car for $160 a month.
I understand that
Good.
the car was in, that I should be responsible for the months that I had paid for the car, but I don't think that he had a good reason for repossessing it from me.
Well, I'm going to let him tell me, but you did not keep up your end of the bargain. If he co-signed for this for you, and you are a minor, which means they can't go after you at all.
Yes.
You can't make a contract with a minor. That has to do with your lawsuit, too, so. You did not fulfill even your moral end of the obligation because you did not make these payments on time, as you're supposed to a finance company. They don't want to, at the end of the month, when your payment is due in the beginning of the month, get a partial payment. And you didn't do that once, you did it more than once.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 17-year-old Tina Malenfant says her father, Walter Brooks, illegally repossessed her car.
Did you receive a call from the company in June?
I received a call that they did not have any indication of her having any liability insurance. Now, she only had collision. That's what was financed. But the state law, as of July 2006, you had to have liability insurance. She never carried it. I always carried it. And she had an accident.
Had you discussed that with her?
I had discussed it with her before she moved out, that she needed to cover her insurance, that I wasn't going to cover it anymore. And she ignored it.
No, Your Honor, he didn't. He had canceled my insurance a long time before I moved out, and he never even notified me. And when the car, he had canceled it when the car was in the shop, actually. And when he told me about the car payment that he made when the car was in the shop, he said, and I'm not paying for your insurance anymore either. And I said, well, that's fine. I'll get my own insurance. And he said.
Did you ever do that?
I was going to.
But no, not going to. Did you ever do that?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So he did have a discussion with you and told you back in February, it's your car,
yes.
It's your responsibility, get the insurance.
Yes.
And you didn't do it. And you didn't make the February payment, and you only made a partial payment in June. So he had every right to take the car back and say, listen, I can't risk my own financial situation, put
yes.
my own financial situation at risk because she's not doing the right thing.
Yes.
So he had every right to take back your car. So you have no case. Now, you have a counterclaim, and your counterclaim is for the down payment that you put on the car, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I'm going to get through it. For the down payment that you put on the car, for the cost of repairing the engine, right?
Yes, ma'am.
For the payments that you made for her to bring the credit up to what it should be.
Correct.
You can't make a contract with a minor. Didn't anybody ever tell you that, even a minor who's your daughter?
Okay.
Who told you that?
Nobody.
But you know that.
Right.
And you didn't make this agreement with her mother?
No.
On her behalf?
No.
Where's the car now?
It's just, I have it in my possession. It's at my house.
Are you using it?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't have insurance on it. I'm just using my truck.
Why don't you sell it?
I plan to. I just was waiting till this is over beforehand.
Fine. I suggest you sell it.
Okay.
Good. Counterclaim is dismissed. You used the car for 9 months?
Yes.
You had full service of the car for 9 months, with the exception of the time that you blew an engine on the car and it was in...
The engine was already, it wasn't...
October, November, December, January. You drove the car for 4 months before you had to bring it into the shop. Is that right?
The radiator was cracked in it when we got it back too.
You drove the car for 4
Yes,
months
yes.
before you had a problem. Now, on another note, do you speak to each other?
Me and her?
No, not her. Him.
No.
You don't speak to your father?
No. I have they were to issue a protective order against him if he contacted me anymore.
Well, that's too bad. How long had you lived with your father?
Almost a year.
And prior to that, you lived with your mother?
Yes.
Why did you move out of your mother's house?
There wasn't enough room. I have a daughter, like I said, and there
How old
wasn't
is your
enough,
daughter?
She's 1. There wasn't enough room for both of us to stay there, and it was very crowded.
Okay. I can't get into the basis of the protective order. It's really beyond this, so I can't make a judgment with regard to whether or not it's a good idea for you to speak to your father, not a good idea for you to speak to your father. Only the two of you know that. In any event, you had a good time with this car. You used it. I assume you used it for work, whatever. Next time you get financing for a car, it's not going to be through your dad. Are you 18?
No. No,
when are you
not
going to be
yet.
18?
I'll be 18 in March.
Okay. How are you getting around now?
My mom takes me.
That's
where I
good.
need to go.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Parties are excused. You may step out.
I didn't get the money that I really do deserve.
I guess it's a lesson that we both learned.
They're both very sick people, and something needs to be done about them.
Don't go buy the used cars for your kids.
I just don't plan on talking to them anymore.
Yeah, this is case number 215 on the calendar in the matter of Lee versus Kearney Yawan. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have seats.
Miss Lee, according to your complaint, the defendant was living in your home. You were living there with a friend of yours, and he was the friend's boyfriend. Is that right?
Yes.
And you claim that he started a fire in your home, caused substantial amount of damage. You want him to pay for all of the damage. The defendant's answer indicates that, well, it was an accident. And two, he fixed a lot of the damage, and there should not be anything that requires any professional attention. Is that right, sir?
That's right.
Okay. When did this happen?
Well, it took place around February of 2000. It was close to midnight, where he had apparently started the fire by himself. And somehow he had used kerosene, and it got out of hand. He left a trail of kerosene from the front door to the fireplace. So when he started to light the fire, it trailed back, of course, to the front door on the hardwood floor as well.
You have pictures of the damage?
Yes, I do.
Were you in the house at the time?
Yes, I was.
The fire was extinguished so that nobody was hurt?
Correct.
Fortunately.
Fortunately,
okay.
Yes.
What's this dollar bill doing on your floor?
Oh, I had a friend took that, and he just put the dollar bill there just to focus in on the area.
I see. I assume that's the ceiling, smoke on the ceiling?
Correct.
Okay. Why did you light a fire with kerosene?
Well,
Oh, no, well, over here.
Okay.
Well is not an answer.
That's actually the part that is not true. I didn't try to light up the fireplace with the kerosene.
How did you light the fire?
Well, okay, the truth is that I think it's about on June last year, and it's not on February.
You needed a fire in June?
Yeah.
Was it very cold?
June 31st, yeah.
It was very cold. Where do you live?
In Seattle.
Even in Seattle, it's cold enough in the summertime that you have to light a fire?
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes it can get really cold, yeah. And I noticed at that time also it was raining outside.
What time of the day or evening did you light this fire?
Well, that's the thing that I'm not quite sure also. I have already totally forgot about this whole incident.
How many fires have you lit in your life that caused damage?
Yeah, that's...
How many is my question.
This is the first time.
Then I would remember it. Do you understand? You almost burned the house down.
Yes.
How did it happen?
Okay, I
Do
have
you
a
remember
drink.
how it happened?
Yes,
Sir?
I remember.
You remember clearly how it happened?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So at that time that it was late at night, and then I was setting up the fireplace, and then after that I go make myself a drink.
What time were you setting up the fireplace?
It's probably around 10 o'clock.
Didn't you have to get up early in the morning?
Yes, I do. Because that I thinking that I was just going to set up the fireplace for about an hour, and then after that I will
No, slowly, sir.
extinguish it.
You thought you were setting up the fireplace and what?
For about only an hour.
Fires don't last for only an hour.
Yeah, but I decided that later on I will just extinguish it myself and then go to bed because I have to work in the morning.
How'd the fire start?
Okay, like I said, that when I get up and then try to make a drink, I have this vodka on my hand, and then I lit up the fire. I didn't use any kerosene or anything. It was a dry wood, so I just start up the fire right away. And then approximately after about 15 minutes or so, I decided I need to go to the restroom. So I go to the fireplace, then put more wood into the fireplace. And then at that time, I put the glass with the vodka in front of the fireplace. And then I just totally forgot because that it's dangerous.
Had a little too much vodka.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes.
Had a little too much vodka.
Yes.
There you go. I knew we were going to find the answer, sir, if we just kept going. So it wasn't an accident. It wasn't on purpose. It was caused by you having a little too much Stoli or whatever you were drinking.
That's right.
Right? Mm-hmm. So you have to take care of the damage. Now, what did you do to take care of the damage?
Well, the next morning that I told...
Fire department came?
No, it didn't. Even though the fire alarm went off because of that.
No fireman came?
No. Your Honor, my son, the fireplace was about 10 feet away from his front bedroom door. And when he heard the alarm went off, he quickly went out. He went to the front yard, took the hose, and came in and hosed it down and extinguished it.
There was damage. Damage to the floors, damage to the door, damage to walls, you know, soot. What did you do to fix all that?
Well, I told my ex-girlfriend that I feel responsible for setting up the fire, causing the fire.
Of course.
Yeah.
You are responsible.
And then I feel bad about it, and then I'm going to fix it. So the next morning, I didn't go to work, and then I start from the painting the front door because it got the smoke stain on that front door. And also after that, I also fixed the hardwood floor just by sanding it, and then.
Did you buy a sander?
No, just like the sandpaper.
That's not the way you fix a floor, sir. You don't take a little piece of sandpaper and just go over areas. You got to do the whole floor.
Yeah. That's the thing is that because I noticed that only like there's like a small black stain on that hardwood floor caused by that fire.
So you just took a little piece of sandpaper and went over it.
Mm-hmm.
What else did you do?
And I also paint the ceiling, not the ceiling, but the wallpaper.
You painted over her wallpaper.
Mm-hmm. Only on the portion that got the smoke.
You're not a decorator, are you, by profession? Huh?
No.
I didn't think so. So that's what you did. You painted over the wallpaper. You took a little piece of sandpaper and you went over the floor in certain spots,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And you painted over the front door. Now, before you painted over the front door, what did you do to get off the soot and the smoke and where it had been charred? Did you sand it down? Did you remove all the paint?
No, I didn't.
You just smeared a coat of paint over it.
That's right. I'm not a handyman, so.
When you cause damage to somebody else's property, sir, you may not be a handyman, but if you cause the damage, then you're supposed to get a professional to take care of it. You're not supposed to do it yourself. Let me see estimates of your damage. Do you have homeowners insurance?
Well, Your Honor...
Well is not an answer. My question is, did you have homeowners insurance? Why not?
At the time, I was changing insurance companies, and the 2 weeks had lapsed, and this incident took place during that 2 weeks.
Is this your own home?
Yes.
I want to see proof that you didn't have insurance. I want to see proof of that, because you're not going to collect twice. Do we understand each other?
Yes.
I'm really smart.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Victoria Lee says her friend's ex-boyfriend, Kiet Kurniawan, damaged her home when he started a fire with kerosene. Kiet says the damage occurred because he left his vodka next to the fireplace.
Now, we're going to bring me something from your insurance company indicating a lapse in coverage at a particular time. Do you have that information?
Yes, Your Honor. I managed to get a letter from the insurance company, as well as a copy of my current insurance, which will show that I started a new insurance as of July 13th, 2000.
And that's in Seattle, Washington?
Yes.
When did you purchase the home?
January of 2000.
How much did you purchase it for?
$240.
You have a mortgage?
Yes, I do.
What's the mortgage?
$189.
If you have a mortgage, you have to have insurance.
Yes.
The lender requires that you have insurance, and if you don't have insurance, they get insurance for you. So if you had to show proof at the closing that you had insurance, everybody knows that. What kind of business are you in?
I'm a mortgage consultant.
You got it. Do we understand each other?
Yes, Your Honor. But my home had closed in January, beginning of January, and then I had wanted to switch insurance company after it had closed. And I was hoping that the lender would not find out, which they didn't. So I did go ahead and get insurance with a different company as of July the 13th.
So what you're telling me is you fraudulently misrepresented to your lender that your premises was insured. Is that right?
No, it was insured at the time of the closing, Your Honor.
Well, at the time of the closing in January, if it was insured in January, it would have been insured in February, when you say the fire took place.
I wanted to change insurance company, so I had canceled it.
Well, that's not his problem. He had an accident in your house. If you had insurance, which you should have had, then you would have been totally covered. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Case is dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I fixed it. And I actually told my ex-girlfriend that I will fix it.
Don't you let your insurance lapse.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Brewer versus Oldham, step forward, please.
38-year-old woodworker Karen Brewer is suing 28-year-old grocery manager Johnny Oldham for reward money that was promised for finding his toy poodle.
Miss Brewer, according to your complaint, you found a dog that turned out to be the defendant's dog. The dog was returned to the defendant, and you believe that there had been a reward for the dog, $500, I believe. You want the reward money.
Yes, ma'am.
When did you find this dog?
My daughter and I was coming back from Little Rock, and we found it on June the 24th. It was dodging cars across the interstate, and we saw it, and we stopped, and we picked it up, and we had called the number that was on the tag, which was his phone number and the veterinarian's number. Was unable to reach anybody, so the following day...
What day of the week was the 24th of June?
It was on Sunday.
Okay, go ahead.
On the 25th, I had called the vet and reported it, that I found the dog and where, and left my name and phone number with them.
Did you speak to a person or an answering machine?
I spoke to the person.
Okay.
Later Monday night, the dog was having seizures. So I called the vet the following next day to see if they were able to locate him, and they still didn't. And I had continued to keep calling his home because they gave me his name and his address and everything.
Did you do anything for the dog when the dog was having seizures?
I just did what the veterinarian said, just stay with them and talk to them and just be there with them.
What kind of dog was it?
It's a poodle.
You have any animals of your own?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
What kind of animals?
I have chihuahuas and a basset hound.
So you have small ones and then one short one, but long.
Short and long.
Heavy.
Big ears.
Big ears. Go ahead.
I continued to keep calling all week, and we finally got a hold of him on Friday, or to his wife.
Almost a week later.
Yes,
found the dog on a Sunday. The following Friday, you
yes,
got in touch with him. Okay, you spoke to his wife.
I had spoken to his wife, told her my name and phone number, and that I had found the dog and where, gave her my address for them to come pick it up. And she had told me about a reward money.
Where's your wife?
She's at home with our children.
Go ahead.
I didn't even know anything about the reward money. His wife had told me, and she said that they have not told their kids because they didn't know what to say to their kids.
Did she say she was paying the reward money?
No, ma'am. She said that a kennel was.
So who came to pick up the dog?
He did about an hour later.
And you gave him the dog?
I gave him the dog.
Did you have a discussion with him about this reward money?
He told me that he had talked to the kennel, and the reward money still stood since I had found the dog, and he's going to make sure I got the reward money.
That's what he said to you?
That's not what
Shh, just a second. That's what he said to you?
That's exactly what he said in front of my daughter and my son and nephews.
Okay. And you never got the reward money?
No, ma'am. He went and picked it up.
Okay. Now, Mr. Oldham.
Yes, ma'am.
I gather that you were on vacation, which is why the dog was kennelled, according to what I read in your papers.
Yes, it was.
When did you go on vacation?
I left on a Saturday afternoon.
And how long were you and your family away?
Till Thursday afternoon.
No, ma'am.
I'm sorry. We got back on a Friday. I apologize.
Good. Now, during the time you were away on vacation, you had no idea that this dog that you had put in a kennel...
No.
Right? Let me finish my question, then you can say no. While you were away for that week, you had no information that your dog that you had placed in a kennel had somehow gotten loose, escaped, been lost. Is that right?
That's right.
So you get home Friday, and you get a call from the plaintiff.
Yes, ma'am.
Who told you she had your dog.
Yes, ma'am.
And you went and got your dog.
That's not exactly how the events took place.
Well, tell me how they took place.
Okay, we got back home that afternoon, and my mother-in-law called me, first of all, and told me that a dog had been stolen from the kennels. She said she didn't call us when we were on vacation because she didn't want us to bother us while we were on vacation. There was nothing we could have done anyway.
Good idea. See how smart your mother-in-law is?
Very smart. Very smart.
Good.
So we directly after that, we called the kennels, and my wife talked to her, and my wife lost it. She was bawling, and I got on the phone, and I told her, I said, how can you tell me that my dog was stolen and it was the only dog stolen? She said, well, it was, and I told her I was to be right there. I went down there to talk to her person to person.
Now, the kennel and your vet are two different people, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead. So you went down, you spoke to the kennel people. What happened next?
Well, she called 5 minutes after I got off the phone.
Fine, so that's what I said before. She called you.
She called me 5 minutes after I got off the phone with the kennels.
Did you ever call your vet?
Yes.
Pay careful attention to what I'm asking you. When you called your vet, did your vet advise you that they had received a telephone call days before from the plaintiff?
No.
Did you ask them?
Yes.
And what did they say?
They said they received a telephone call from her asking about our dog.
Well, that's what I'm asking you, sir. I'm not playing with you.
I'm sorry.
They received a telephone call from the plaintiff days before.
Yes, ma'am.
Saying, I found this dog. Here is the tag number.
No, ma'am. They called. She said that the information that they asked was they wanted to know about the dog. They wanted to know information about my dog. They did not tell her that they'd found my dog. They said they wanted to know information about my dog because it had seizures.
Oh, I don't think that that's true, Mr. Oldman. I think you're making that up, sir.
I've got a letter from the veterinarian.
I don't think that that's true, sir. Mr. Oldham.
I've got a letter from the veterinarian also.
Yeah, I'd like to see both letters.
It's just showing my dog's
Shh. All right. This is a letter dated July 27th. Just save me a phone call because I'm not stupid. This is what he's going to tell me if I call. I had a phone conversation about a month ago with a lady who had found a poodle on Interstate 30. She was attempting to find the owner of the dog and reported that the dog had seizures. The dog had been vaccinated at our clinic, and she had obtained the name and phone number of the owner and stated that she attempted to contact him. This is from your vet.
Okay. Right. Yes, ma'am.
Ah. Now, did the kennel pay you any money?
Yes, ma'am, she did.
How much money did the kennel pay you?
She gave me $500 for her irresponsibility and compensation.
Baloney! I absolutely believe the plaintiff when she said to me that she was told there was a reward. Not a reward that you were going to pay for the dog, but a reward that the kennel was offering for the dog.
No, ma'am. I mean,
no, ma'am.
I went up there to get my dog from the kennels.
Yeah.
After I got it, it was infested with fleas. I took it to the kennels and I said, would you please dip it? It's infested with fleas. The conversation we had between her was that we believed that she had something to do with the stealing of my dog.
I want to tell you something, Mr. Oldham. There is something wrong with your mind. Why would somebody who stole your dog call the vet, report that she had found this dog, say, I don't understand it, the dog has seizures, could you help me out? I don't know what to do with the dog has seizures. Then pick up the phone and try to call you. Now, there's no question she had been trying to call you continuously because she called you on the day you returned from vacation. You think that that was just an act of God that she called you just on that day? She had been calling you continuously all week. What you did was the wrong thing. You should have paid her yourself for finding your dog. Instead, the kennel, who was responsible for lax security, offered a reward. She found the dog. She wasn't even looking for the reward. She wasn't. She was promised the reward because she was told that there was a reward. And then you went, picked up the money, and kept it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Yeah, this is case number 238 on the calendar, the matter of McKee versus Granados. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Mrs. McKee, you have a daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
The defendant has a pit bull, right? Excuse me, Bird. Could you ask this young lady to either get a sweater or to get out? It's a courtroom.
A little improper decorum. You can find a sweater, you can come back in.
Now, it is your complaint, Ms. McKee, that the defendant's pit bull bit your daughter. The defendant does not deny that his pit bull bit your daughter, but he said it was her fault.
Correct.
Okay. Tell me your first name.
Rosemary.
Rosemary, do you remember when this happened?
Yes.
Tell me when.
It was July 20th at approximately 12:30.
In the afternoon?
Yeah.
Would you feel more comfortable talking to me up here, or you want to stay near your mom?
There.
Come on.
Okay.
Okay. Drop your papers. Want me to hold them for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, July 20th, where were you?
I was riding my bike across the street from my house by the thrift store wall.
And did you see the defendant and his dog?
Yeah.
Tell me what happened.
I was riding my bike and then I stopped. He was with a painter that was painting the wall, and I stopped and I asked the painter what he was painting, and he said he was writing.
He was writing?
Yeah, he was writing. And then they both started laughing, and then so I started riding my bike and I pedaled like 3 or 4 times, and then the dog like went out and grabbed me.
Where did the dog grab you?
Right here on my leg.
On your leg?
Yeah. and I fell off my bike, and I was screaming. They pulled the dog off of me. And
The defendant and the painter?
yeah, and another guy. And then he asked me if he wanted to carry me, and I said no. So I hobbled to the, I hopped on this leg to the closest stairs by a building, and I sat there screaming and crying, and my friend went to go get my mom, and my mom was like really worried and stuff, and he kept saying he's sorry, and then all these people were watching, and they were like, what happened? And he said that I was trying to touch the dog and get close to him and like petting him and stuff, but I didn't even look at him or anything.
Did you have to go to the hospital?
Yeah, he called the ambulance on his cell phone.
He did?
Yeah.
Did the ambulance come?
Yeah, in like 45 minutes.
How many stitches did you need?
26.
Do you have a scar on your leg?
Yeah.
I would like to see it, so I'm going to come down.
Okay.
Unless I can see it from here. That's quite a bad scar.
Yeah.
Did you see the scar on her leg?
I haven't seen it, no, ma'am.
Why don't you go stand next to your mom?
Okay. And there are the pictures when I got stitches if you want to see them.
Why don't you take a look at her leg? Because you should be able to see what I see. Okay, Mr. Granados, I read your answer. Why don't you tell me your version of what happened?
It's pretty much the same story, Your Honor. Besides that, she did try to pet the dog.
How did you try to pet the dog, Mr. Granados?
He was confined. He was on a leash.
Yes.
A 2-foot leash, which I was holding him the whole time. He was laying down next to the wall in the sidewalk, and she drove her bike up to both of us.
Where you were standing with the painter. By the way, what was the person painting?
A mural over some gang graffiti.
So she drove up and she said to the painter, "What are you painting?"
Correct.
Did anybody answer her?
I believe my friend answered her yes.
And what did the friend say?
A mural.
Is that what he said?
He said it's writing.
Writing?
Yeah.
At what point did she attempt to pet the dog?
Prior to that, she had rode her bike back and forth. So I really don't know exactly how many times she rode by, but around right after she had talked, it happened really quick.
No,
so.
I'm trying to picture this in my mind, sir. She's on her bicycle.
Okay.
She's a little girl on her bicycle.
Correct.
You see, if she was attempting to pet your dog, then the bite would have been on her arm. If she was on her bike, pedaling away, that is consistent with the injury that she has, because it's a bite mark to the back of her leg. So you explain to me how she was bitten when she attempted to, much better. Sit down.
I'll explain
When
it to you.
she attempted to pet your dog, explain to me how she was bitten.
Okay. She was sitting on the bike. She reached over her bike to pet the dog. Her leg is closer to the dog than her arm is. She never got a chance to actually pet the dog. I had him on the leash, though, so I pulled him away like, no, because I was surprised that she was actually trying to pet the dog.
Why?
Because she didn't know the dog. She didn't know if it's a, I have a,
Okay,
it's a
so
big
you
dog.
pulled the dog away.
I pulled him away.
Right, and then she went to pedal away.
No, that's not how it happened.
Well, if you pulled the dog away, how did she end up with that scar on her leg?
Like I just said, when she reached over to pet the dog, he snapped at her. He bit her.
Good. Whose fault is that?
I believe it's her fault because she shouldn't have been trying to pet the dog. I had him on the leash. So
I don't believe she was trying to pet the dog, sir.
Well,
I don't believe you. Don't believe you. This much.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 10-year-old Rosemary McKee says she was bitten by Damian Granado's pit bull. Damian says Rosemary startled the dog.
She's on her bike. The injury that she sustained is totally consistent with the story that she tells, that she stopped, asked a question, and you and your friend laughed, and then she was pedaling away. She was pedaling away, and your dog just went for her leg. I don't buy this leaning over to try to pet the dog. If she's leaning over to try to pet the dog, that dog would have bit her on the arm, her hand, not the back of her leg. It's totally inconsistent with common sense. Were you there?
No.
So what are you doing here?
I came to pick the dog up. I'm a roommate.
You came to pick the dog up from where?
From the scene.
So? So
I had called her because I had called the animal control people right after I called the paramedics.
Yeah.
Because I was scared, you know. I was scared. I didn't know what to do with the whole situation. So I called the paramedics first, and I called the animal control, and they said, "Come remove the dog." You know?
I mean, she didn't try to torment your dog with a stick. She didn't kick your dog.
No, she didn't.
Even if I believed you, which I don't. She didn't try to torment, she didn't kick, she didn't scream, she didn't yell, right?
No, I think the bike actually is what scared the dog.
Well, that's what's in the street, bicycles, cars, things. You know.
Yeah,
if you have a pit bull, then you get a muzzle. If you have a pit bull, you get a muzzle. Aren't there other breeds of dogs that perhaps you might be interested in?
Well, the animal control people said it's not safe to have your muzzle on a dog because it restrains his breathing, and he's never had any prior attacks, so I had never...
Now he has had one. She has to be compensated. She's got a scar that's going to last for the rest of her life.
Correct.
Yeah? So what kind of compensation did you offer her? Did you offer to pay her medical bills?
Yes, I did. I called the mother after. I gave her all my information, my phone number.
Is that true?
No, ma'am. He has never called me.
You mean from the time this incident happened in July and your daughter was taken away by ambulance, he has not called you to inquire as to how she is?
Yes, Your Honor. He has never called to any concern at all, other than the fact that his pit bull might be put to sleep. That was his only concern.
Well, how did he relay that concern to you?
He was just about crying while he was on the cell phone while we were waiting for the ambulance.
After that, after your daughter was taken away by ambulance?
He has never called.
Still have the dog?
Correct.
I assume you spoke to a plastic surgeon?
Yes, ma'am.
When does the plastic surgeon indicate that they may be able to make some headway with regard to correcting the scar that she has?
Well, that would be 6 months to a year, which would include scar revisal, which would include removing the scar 3 times and sewing it back together.
Why in the world, Mr. Granados, would you keep a dog that you know is capable of inflicting this kind of injury over, if I believed you, which I don't, over a child coming over just to pet your dog? Why would you keep a dog like that?
Prior to that, I did not know he was capable of any type of injury. We have kids at our house, and you
have kids at your house?
Correct. And
how
to
many
this
kids
day,
do you have at your house?
Well, just her nephew comes over once or twice a week.
Oh, you're an idiot. Judgment for the plaintiff and the amount requested, $5,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
The police would not come because the dog was leashed.
Honestly, I'm devastated. If that happened to my nephew, if the dog ever did that.
The animal department would not come because after the attack, the dog was put into a car and contained.
I mean, they had somebody from the city come to the house, and they said the house was safe and secure.
And they interviewed the dog.
Judge Judy has finally let my daughter Rosemary have a little justice.
All parties in the matter of Anderson versus Liebler, step forward, please.
22-year-old homemaker Shauna Anderson is suing her ex-boyfriend, 21-year-old clerk Caleb Liebler, for an unpaid loan for bail. Caleb says he paid her back.
Miss Anderson, the defendant was a former boyfriend of yours.
Yes.
There came a time when you were angry with him about something, and according to you, you knew that he had stolen something.
Yes.
A stereo, a car stereo. And in order to get back at him, you told the person from whom he had stolen the stereo that he stole the stereo. Is that right?
It wasn't really to get back at him. I knew the person. And
a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
You weren't being a good Samaritan.
No.
He was arrested.
Yes.
And you felt a little bit guilty, so you decided you would help him out and bail him out.
Yes.
The bail money was $500.
Yes.
Then, according to you, he asked you if he could use that bail money to pay his lawyer.
Yes.
You said, okay, but it's a loan.
Yes.
Now, you, Mr. Liebler, acknowledged that it was a loan.
Yes.
Your defense is that you paid her back.
Yes.
Okay? So now we have the facts, and now you have to show me how you paid her back. Right?
Yes.
When did you take the $500 and give it to the lawyer? What date?
Sometime in April.
April
of 2000.
Of 2000?
Of 2000. This case is 14 months old.
When did you pay her back?
I paid her back from that point on until I left for jail at the end of August.
How did you pay her?
I paid her in
Now look at me. Don't look at
I'm
the
sorry.
sky.
I paid her back in payments. We worked together at Friendly's. We lived together.
From April until August?
Earlier than that.
He did not live with me.
I lived with her
Don't
in that
speak.
residence from February until May.
When did you start paying her back? After you separated?
I started paying her back after I left.
After you left the house?
I went back home, still working with her though, at Friendly's. We ended up getting back together.
Okay.
I did not move back with her. I stayed at home, but we were together.
You saw each other?
Right.
Fine.
And whenever she needed money on the weekends, she'd come up to me saying, "You owe me money. I need money this weekend. I'm broke. Can I get paid? You know, can you give me something?" So I would give her $60, $80 here and there. She does not have a license. She doesn't have a car.
Don't go into extraneous stuff.
I'm
You
not.
would give us $60, $80.
I'm not.
You have to tell me when.
When? On weekends, Fridays, Saturday nights.
May
Like,
2000. I don't want to hear from you now. It's up to him to convince me that he's paid you back. So I have weekends, $60 or $80.
Yeah, from the end of May through June, on weekends, Friday, Saturday nights. She comes up to me at work. "I want to go to a rave. I want to go to the club. I want to go out this weekend. I have no money. Do you have something for me?" Would she even ask me for a receipt, but I'm being at work. I'm a cook. I'm greasy and stuff like that. I'm not going to take a receipt and stuff in my pocket. So I just never asked for a receipt. I would give her money on weekends. She lived a half an hour from her job, so there was certain times where I'd actually give her money for hotel rooms to stay in, so she did not have to drive back up to Saratoga, you know, to go home, because she doesn't have a car. Sometimes we'd work until 2 o'clock in the morning. I paid for hotel rooms just for her to stay in.
You stayed in them too.
Right. Right?
Sometimes.
All the time.
Not all the time.
Miss Anderson,
we
stop doing the weave dance and keep your mouth closed until I ask you a question. Okay. Do you understand?
Yes.
What else, Mr. Liebler?
What else? I'll have to say that while I was living with her, there was many expenses.
No,
that
I'm not talking about before. Before May, I'm not interested in.
I gave her money, handouts, whenever she needed it.
Handouts is not the return of a loan.
But that's what it was in terms of. That's what she'd bring up.
Just a
She'd bring
second.
up, "You owe me money."
Mr. Liebler, you added in this pot motel rooms that you paid for that you also stayed in.
No, not all the time.
Yeah. How many times?
I'd say twice. I'd say at least twice. At
least twice, maybe 3 times.
No, twice.
Well, get a receipt. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. Next time, get a receipt.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Yes, matter of Craig versus Kane. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have seats.
Ms. Craig, it is your claim that the defendant assaulted you at a high school reunion. By the way, when was the reunion?
November 22nd.
2000?
Yes, Your Honor.
How do you know her?
She is my ex-husband's fiance.
Anthony is my husband.
And you used to be married to her?
That's my ex-wife.
Okay, so this is not the fiance. They are married.
Yes.
Did you know that?
No, Your Honor.
Well, they are married. Okay, have you ever had any problems with her before?
Well, prior to the incident, they had called CPS on me and fabricated lies about me.
When had they called Child Protective Services?
It was about 3 weeks to a month prior to that.
What was the complaint?
They were fabricating lies saying that I was a drug user and that domestic violence in my home. And the CPS had came to my house and my children's school and my work and everything, and they closed the case prior to my reunion.
Does your ex-husband see the children?
He sees the children on and off. He hasn't been seeing them lately for the past couple weeks.
Okay, so that's the backdrop. Then you all go to the reunion. I assume you all went to high school together.
Yes.
And tell me what happened when you got to the reunion.
I showed up at the reunion at approximately 9:30. I paid $75 just for myself to go. And I was walking around talking to my friends, and I was looking for this man in a blue and the black shirt. I remembered him from 10th grade. I wasn't sure of his name, but I was asking numerous people, where's this guy in the blue and the black shirt? Because I just wanted to dance and have a good time. Well, I walked outside on the patio to have a cigarette. I looked to my left, and I saw him sitting at a table. And I walked over to the table, and I said, "Oh, James," because we had name tags on. And he lit my cigarette. When I bent down to light my cigarette, I saw Maida out of the corner of my eye talking to 2 of her girlfriends. She appeared to be upset. Her girlfriends were huddling like over her, like she appeared to be upset. I just said to James, I said, would you like to dance when we go back in after having our cigarette? I'm really glad I came. I'm seeing a lot of people I haven't seen for a while, and that's about as far as I got. At this time, Maida approached me from the side. She got like this close to my face, and she says, "Did you even graduate?" And she appeared to be, drinking, maybe intoxicated. I don't know, because the reunion started at 6. And I said, "Of course I did, Maida." And at that time, she pushed me down. I fell down. I was wearing a dress. I have a cut on my leg and injuries. I have photos.
Just a second. She pushed you down how?
She just pushed me down, physically pushed me down. I fell down and I cut my leg. When I proceeded to get up, I wore my hair down that night, and she had got my head into a firm headlock, and there was big heating lamps there at the Mission Inn in Riverside, and she was trying to bang my head into one of those heating lamps. And at this time, because of the fabricated lies, I'm not going to lose.
Shh, just a second. Don't tell me fabricated lies.
Well,
just tell me what happened.
Well, due to the prior incidents of them calling CPS, I cannot even touch her, not even in self-defense. At this time, after she pushed me and I started to get back up, I placed my hands right here, like I'm not even going to touch you. I refused to touch her.
Why? Is there an order of protection against you?
No, I just refused to touch her.
What do you mean? I don't understand. You said, due to the prior incident with CPS, I'm not allowed to touch her or go near her.
Because of them calling CPS, I was afraid that they would lie and I would go to jail and I would lose my kids if I even defended myself one bit. So I did not even touch her, Your Honor, not once. My hands were behind my back the whole time. At this time, James saw that I wasn't even defending myself.
Don't tell me what anybody else saw. Just tell me what happened.
He stood up behind me and barricaded me because he saw I wasn't defending myself. At this time,
Don't tell me what he saw, madam. Just tell me what happened.
Okay,
James stood up and barricaded himself around you.
Okay, barricaded himself around me. At this time, she still had my head, and she couldn't bang it into the heating lamp because he was standing behind me, so she was proceeding with her nail around like this, trying to poke my eye out, and that's when I got scratches in my eye and a black eye. And at this time, the security guards came running out, and she released my head prior to them running out and screamed, "Jennifer, quit hitting me, quit hitting me. She's a psychotic drug addict, and she's going to lose her kids to CPS," in front of my whole reunion. And at that time, I ran because I was in such shock to go find my purse, to call the police on my cell phone. Police came. There was a police report made. I left in the ambulance and went to Riverside Community Hospital.
Okay. Do you have a copy of your medical report and any photographs you want to show me?
There's the medical report. Did you want to see photos?
Yes.
Medical bills.
What are you showing me in this picture with your hands together like this?
That one, I was just showing that I had a bruise on my wrist from where I was holding my wrist, and also to show that I had all my nails on, because if I was fighting back in self-defense, I definitely would not have any nails on.
Okay. All right, let's see your version of what happened.
It was the night of, I believe it was November 25th, at my 10-year reunion, when I was out on the patio with my friends. We were at 2 tables. James was with us, and she approached us at the patio, and she asked Nancy if it was the smoking section. Nancy replied no, and she ignored Nancy, and she kept talking to James, who was clearly with us. When I got up to leave the premises is when I made a comment about, because I was shocked that she came because she didn't graduate from Norco. She didn't walk in commencement with us. And when I walked out, I made a comment about her not graduating from Norco High. As I was leaving, she pushed me.
How did she push you?
She just pushed me.
You didn't fall over or anything?
No.
She just pushed you with her hands?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And so I've seen her assault other people, and I was scared, and so I reacted, and I grabbed her by her hair, and I held her against this pole so that I could secure myself, and when she was kicking is when I had to use my left leg to protect myself from her right leg. When Michelle went and got the security guards, that was when they split us both up. She was kicking and screaming, yelling, I assaulted her, which is when she called the police and took the ambulance.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jennifer Craig says her ex-husband's new wife, Maida Kane, assaulted her at their high school reunion. Maida says Jennifer started the fight.
Ms. Craig, did you in fact graduate from this school?
No, I graduated from Buena Vista because I went to cosmetology school also.
Just listen to me. You did not graduate from this school.
No.
So what were you doing there at a 10th year reunion?
I went through Norco High through all my high school years except for my senior year, and I thought about it and I wanted to go.
Did you know that they would be there?
No, Your Honor, I did not know.
Well, did you know that they graduated from that high school?
I knew that she graduated from the high school, but I didn't know that she was attending the reunion. If I would have known...
But you knew that she went to that high school.
Right, and so did I.
You're not listening. You knew that she went to that high school so that there was a chance that she would be there, right?
Right.
So it was really rather foolish of you to put yourself into that situation where there was clearly recent hostility with regard to the children and your former husband and his fiancée. I don't understand why you even put yourself in that situation. It's really kind of foolish to do that. You don't agree with that?
Well, Your Honor, I wasn't sure whether they were going to be there or not.
Even if you suspected.
And I didn't want to miss my 10-year reunion. And I don't.
It wasn't your reunion.
Yes, it was, because I knew a lot of people there that I went to high school with. And I didn't want to miss my 10-year reunion, and I don't...
You keep saying 10-year reunion. It wasn't your 10-year reunion. You didn't graduate from this high school. I can understand you wanting to see people that you went to school with. But as opposed to going there with these people who you had a recent problem with, and you suspected that they might be there because you knew she graduated from there, smart would have been to say, I'll see them at some other time. Did you, in fact, when she came up to you and said, did you graduate from here? I didn't know you graduated, which is something you didn't need to say. It was a gratuitous dig, right?
Yes.
Unnecessary. All you have to do is walk out, right?
Correct.
Were you there?
Yes, I was.
Step up. Were you two people there?
Yes.
Then I don't need the husband. Sit down. I'd rather hear from you. Tell me your name.
Nancy.
Nancy what?
Farrow.
Miss Farrow, you were there from the beginning?
Yes, when we were outside on the patio and she approached us.
Tell me what you observed.
Me and Michelle were standing at the chair, or at the table. Maida was sitting down. James was at a separate table by himself next to us.
James, the blue shirt.
The blue shirt guy. And I was kind of bent over talking to Maida when I saw Jennifer approaching us. And she walked up, sashaying, is this the smoking section? None of us are smoking. We don't smoke. I said no. Telling her, like, we don't want you here. Get away. So she still came by and stopped and talked to James. And then that's when Maida got up and made the comment to her.
Let me hear. Come on. Let me hear the whole thing.
Well, Maida got up, walked by her, and made the comment about, you didn't even graduate, or did you graduate from here? And that's when Jennifer pushed her, and then that's...
How did she push her?
Just, you know, not like to knock her over, but she touched her. And so that was enough to make, I guess, both of them upset, and they just...
Oh, it was enough to make... It was clearly enough to make the defendants upset.
Yes.
And then she reacted.
Correct.
You think, Ms. Kane, that you overreacted?
I don't know if you can overreact when you're scared.
Well, being scared is one thing, but you precipitated this.
I was holding her to defend myself.
No, why were you defending yourself? She pushed you. Show me how she pushed her again. Right. Didn't fall over, nothing happened. But according to you, you know she's a violent person, so you defended yourself. And you defended yourself by throwing her into a headlock and punching her a couple of times.
No, I was holding
punching her a couple of times. Evidently she fell down. I mean, she has bad bruises over here on her leg. What?
Can I say something?
Sure.
About
Why don't
this
you
whole
both sit
about
down?
the whole thing and how it started.
Sure.
If I may. Okay. With regards to what Jennifer was saying about me calling CPS on her and having absolutely no reason and fabricating lies, I'd like to touch that real quick. Maida and I went over to drop my children off after we had them a whole weekend on Sunday. We pull up and she's out in the front yard with her boyfriend, the father of her child, her other child, kicking him, slapping him, slamming his car door on his face. And I told him and her that I wasn't going to leave until she let him go, because obviously he wanted to leave. She wasn't going to let him. At this time, my two children are standing in the park with 15 other kids that live in that complex watching this whole thing go on. That's where the understanding comes in. The minute she raised her hands, I wouldn't expect anything less of my wife than to defend herself against somebody that's violent like that. Not only that, but there's been lots of violence throughout the whole time that we've been separated and the whole time that I was married to her. A lot of violence.
That may be. Your wife should kept her mouth shut.
Well, that's true.
Okay. What made you think that there was drug use in the house?
My kids have both mentioned smoking and unfamiliar smell. My son's very nervous. He's 9 years old and he's still soiling his underwear. I have a tape, we have here audio, of Jennifer actually calling the house and having my daughter get on the phone and ask where the child support is, the child support money's at, telling me she's going to come over to my house. And then actually that night we did tape that. She did come over and she kicked my door in.
Sounds to me as if these kids are not seeing very good examples
Well,
set.
we
Where
have
was
the
the
tape
child
if
support?
you'd like to hear it.
Where was the child support?
The child support was pouring in at $800 a month. I'm only $10,000 behind on my child support, and I've been paying child support for 3 years.
$10,000 is a lot of money.
It is, and I agree with that, and I'm paying it back, as well as still paying currently.
Why did you fall $10,000 behind the child
Well,
support?
what happened was I changed careers, and I dropped down to making a very low amount of money that would barely keep me going. I gave her what I could, and I went to court.
How long ago did you fall behind?
This was 2.5, 3 years ago.
In the past 2 years, have you been current in your child support?
Yes, I have.
They take it out of your salary?
Yes, they do.
Your Honor, can I just say something regarding about that incident when he was saying that I dropped off the kids?
Go ahead.
Okay, prior to when I was moving in that night, I had some friends moving me in, and they came to drop the kids off. Well, Joe, my boyfriend, was outside talking to them. I walked outside to see where he was. At this time, Maida flips me off, and I was like, what's up with that? And they're sitting there saying that I'm harassing them, starting a fight with them. I didn't do anything.
So you're telling me you didn't have a fight with your boyfriend?
I didn't even do anything. No, Your Honor.
No, listen to me. You're telling me that you didn't have a fight with your boyfriend?
No.
I'm not sure if I believe that.
I didn't.
I'm not sure if I believe that.
And when I walked out, she had flipped me off in front of my children.
Maybe she did that, but I'm not sure that you didn't have a fight with the boyfriend.
No, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm. You ever smoke marijuana in your house?
No, Your Honor, I do not. I smoke cigarettes, and that's it. See, prior to this...
Shh, don't say see.
He had...
Shh, listen to me. Is what you're telling me that you've never smoked drugs in your house?
Yes, Your Honor, that is correct. He had a hair follicle drug test taken on me in court that I had passed. I don't use drugs, and he just fabricates lies because he has child support.
Her and her mother got in an argument, and Jennifer's mother wasn't allowed to see the children. And Maida and I had talked about that, and I said it's not right because she's done it to everybody in my family. She's done it to everyone on my side of the family, and she started doing it to her side of the family because her and her mother got in a fight. Her mother was the only stable thing in those kids' life at that point, and I knew that. I was only seeing them every other weekend and once a week, on Wednesdays, and I knew what was going on. So I called her mom, and I said, hey, anytime you want to come over here and see the kids, you're more than welcome, blah, blah, blah. Her mother comes over and tells me that she knew she did a bad thing. And I said, well, what's that? Well, she knew that Jennifer was on drugs and went on the internet and got the chemicals that you need to put on your hair to wipe everything off your hair follicles. That was the first person that told me that. The second person that told me that was her boyfriend, Joe, because they were fighting, and he told me, he came over to the house going, I don't know how you dealt with it as long as you did, blah, blah, blah. And I said, hey, to be totally honest with you, I did what I did, and it's over. I found somebody I'm really happy, and there it is.
Mr. Kane, just keep a close eye on things. Do you understand me?
Yeah, I understand.
Good. That's all. That's all I'm going to say. All right, now I have to get to this claim. Ms. Craig, let me tell you what I believe. I believe that the defendant said something that was totally unnecessary to you when she said either, I didn't know you graduated, or did you graduate from here? It was a gratuitous dig that was pretty stupid. I also believe that you pushed her after she said it to you. Oh, yes, I believe that you pushed her. I don't believe that you hurt her. I believe that you, as indicated, pushed her. Did you have a right to do that? No. Did you hurt her? No. And was her response to being pushed consistent with the threat? The answer is no. Okay. You overreacted, and you can't do that. I honestly believe that you could have avoided the problem with her totally by just walking out. Keep walking, right? Said not a word. You didn't do that. She's not responsible. You're responsible. I think that there's more to the underlying case here with regard to the background, what's going on in her house, but I can't get into that now. That's just a sense, which is why I said to you, just be vigilant. Do you understand? But you are responsible for her medical bills, and I believe that you are also responsible for some of her pain and suffering. I also think that you have certain responsibility because you were the first person to put your hands on her. I honestly believe that you pushed her first. I believe that because that would be a natural reaction by somebody who has somebody coming up right in their face and saying something that was nasty. You might not hit her, and I don't think you hit her. You shoved her out of the way. Did not require the defense that you attribute to, well, I knew her history as of being a violent person, so I defended myself. Do you understand? You had medical bills of $1,441.39, and I believe you were probably out of work for a couple of days. And I believe that you had some pain and suffering, and I'm entering a judgment for $3,000 in favor of the plaintiff. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Yes.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Smith versus Smith. Step forward.
60-year-old singer Myrna Smith is suing her daughter-in-law, 33-year-old computer specialist Candy Smith, for an unpaid loan to hire an attorney.
Mrs. Smith, the defendant is your daughter-in-law.
Yes, she is.
According to your complaint, there came a time when your daughter-in-law needed some money. She needed some money for an attorney because she was going to be involved in a custody dispute with her former husband. You have 2 children from your prior marriage, and you loaned her the money,
yes.
$5,000. And it is your claim that she has not repaid you.
She has not repaid.
And your daughter-in-law believes that she has the right to offset that money, and she's going to explain that to me. When did you make this loan?
I made the loan May 1st, 2000.
Do you have the canceled check?
Yes.
Can I see it, please?
And this is also my statement.
Okay, what was your agreement with regard to repaying this loan?
She told me what she would do would, on her pay days, she would deposit money into my account. However, that did not happen, so finally I went through my son and I asked when she would start making the repayments, and she decided that she would make the payments, but she wanted to put them into my savings account instead of my checking account, and I felt she had no right to know what was in my savings account. And she was very inquisitive about my money and how it was spent.
Okay, and as of today's date, you have received no money from this
No.
$5,000. And you acknowledge that, but for your defense, you did not repay this money out of paychecks or anything else.
No.
Okay, now I'll hear your defense.
Actually, what happened was that at this time, when we had moved into the house, she had given
What
me...
house?
We had purchased a house together. She had actually sold her previous residence, and she had used the down payment to purchase a house so that we all can live together, and we were sort of helping each other out.
And help yourselves as well.
Right, and help
All right,
ourselves.
so what was the arrangement? She put the down payment on this new house.
Correct.
How much was the down payment on the new house?
$100,000.
She put down the $100,000 on a house that you were all living in together.
Correct, it was under my husband's name.
Was there a mortgage on this house?
Yes, there was.
How much was the mortgage?
$185,000.
And I gather from your papers that you and your husband make the mortgage payments.
Correct.
How much were the mortgage payments?
$1,703.
$1,703. And how many people from your family, you and your husband, you have a child together?
Yes, we have 1 child together and 2 children from my previous marriage.
So there are 5 of you all together.
Correct.
And how many people, other than your mother-in-law, were living in the house?
The grandmother and also the uncle.
Grandmother or uncle paying any money towards the house?
He needs to answer. I can't answer.
Step up. Mr. Smith, how much money was your uncle paying to the house?
My uncle was scheduled to pay $400 a month, but unfortunately that rarely happened.
What about your grandmother?
No, nothing.
Okay. How many months did you live in the house?
If include January, 8 months.
How many mortgage payments did you make? Because that's your defense to this action. How many mortgage payments did you personally make?
Roughly 8 months.
You have proof of those payments?
Show her proof that you were paying mortgage.
What is that?
This
is the household account that my son and I had to make payments for anything regarding the house. This is how our bills were paid.
Can I see? And I'll see your checks for the mortgage payments.
Unfortunately, that I do not have. I didn't know that was going to come into question.
You have a bill, though, right?
I have a bill.
No, I don't need a bill. I need The mortgage payments. Your defense, Mrs. Smith,
Right.
is that wasn't working out and the house was going to be sold, wasn't working out with all you folks living together, and your mother-in-law insisted that the deed be turned back to her. It was, and you believe that you can set off the number of mortgage payments that you made on the house against the $5,000 that you owed her. That's your defense.
No,
in a
not
nutshell.
exactly. Not
Well,
exactly. I'm sorry. Can I clear this up? Okay, my defense is that because of some illegal activities that took place, we had no other choice but to move.
No. I don't want to hear that.
Yes, we had to move out of the house within 2 weeks. We had told her we were selling the house because of what was going on. With the money that we had, we had to actually use a lot of money to leave the house when we shouldn't have had to leave the house.
Is that your defense?
We shouldn't have to have...
Just a second. Is that your defense?
Well, yes.
That because of what you perceive to be some illegal activity that was going on in the house, you chose to move, which was a very good judgment, and you believe that your mother-in-law owes you money, the money that you had to spend to find a new place.
Right. That is included with the money that we spent with the mortgage. This is all tied together.
Well, so I'm going to eliminate your first defense. Your first defense is no defense. Now let's get to the mortgage payments that you say you made. Do you have any other checks?
And the only checks that I would use for the mortgage payments was the household account.
Okay, and who put money into the household account?
It was my wife, myself, and then my mother.
And your mother?
Yes.
Well, how much money did you put into the account?
And my brother.
Just a minute. How much money, and the $400, and how much money did you put into the account every month?
$1,900 a month I put into that account.
Now, my next question to you is the house was sold.
Actually, my son went and got a $20,000 loan that I didn't know about.
Loan for what? Against the house?
Yes.
Did you get a $20,000 loan against the house?
Yes, I did, ma'am.
Did you pay it back?
I didn't have an opportunity to.
No, did you pay it back?
I was paying the loan back to the people that I got the loan from.
Did you put in any money towards the down payment?
Towards the down payment, no.
So she has $100,000 in down payment.
Right.
Right?
Correct.
She has $100,000. You have Zippo. You can't offset. I mean, first of all, you can't offset it anyway, but it's not even reasonable to offset it. Because if your mother goes to sell the house now, there's a $20,000 loan that you took out that's going to be deducted from the sale price of that house. Did you consult with your mother before you took out this loan? Did she say it was okay?
I didn't need to. I didn't need her permission on that.
Well, you don't need her permission on this either. You
Well,
owe her $5,000. That's what you owe her. That's what you borrow. That's what you repay. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may stand in the matter of Boone versus Rose. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat, please.
Get ready for a lecture. Mr. Boone, you and the defendant evidently had a relationship, and you have a baby together. Your lawsuit, Mr. Boone, which I will dispose of very quickly, says that while you were together, she drove your car, you drove her truck, you put a stereo system in her car because you were doing a lot of the driving in her car. Then you broke up and you want your stereo system back.
Basically.
Uh-huh.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't you have bigger things to deal with?
Yes, we do.
So why are you bothering with this dumb issue?
Because the money that I was going to get from the stereo system was going to go towards my son.
Why don't you get a job?
I've got a job.
Good. Use the money from your job. Do you understand? That's
Yes.
what you do. Use money from your job. What I find most interesting is your counterclaim, which I will dispose of equally as swiftly. Your counterclaim, which is a little interesting, says that you and the plaintiff agreed while you were pregnant that the baby was going to be placed for adoption. And then Mr. Boone changed his mind.
In the hospital when we were signing the paperwork, yes, ma'am.
And because he changed his mind, it cost you about $1,000 for a lawyer.
Yes, ma'am.
And you want him to pay the $1,000 because he changed his mind.
I want him to pay the $1,000 because he lied to the judge and he lied to a lawyer. He said that I had given up my rights, which as soon as I found out he did not sign the paperwork, I signed the reversal papers, the dismissal papers, ma'am, and he went and got a court order against me to take the baby home with him. And that's not a place for a baby. And so it was either the baby goes home with him or I go and get a lawyer and have the baby come home with me.
Miss Rose.
Yes, ma'am.
First, take a tissue.
Thank you.
So let me understand. You're in the hospital. You had signed a release for the baby.
Yes, ma'am.
He changed his mind.
Yes, ma'am.
And then he went to court and said, she's given up her rights to the baby, so I want to take my son home with me.
Yes, ma'am.
Had you ever discussed placing the baby for adoption, Mr. Boone?
We had. We went to a few meetings with the lady of Lifeline. The first meeting we went to, I told her I did not want to do it. I did not want to give the baby up for adoption. And
did you change your mind?
Well,
you're allowed to tell me that I did change my mind.
Well, I did, but I mean, I never wanted to give him up for adoption to begin with.
I understand that, but I want you to be very honest with me. You
Yes.
had, in fact, discussed it with her.
Yeah, we had discussed it. We were
And-
making an option.
And you did see your son and then change your mind.
I watched him be born. That was, you know, probably one of the happiest days of my life.
So far?
So far.
How old are you?
I'm 18.
It's a very short life so far.
Yes.
Ms. Rose.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to try to explain it to you in a way you'll understand it.
Yes.
Let us say the situation was reversed, and the two of you had decided, especially Mr. Boone, that he wasn't ready for parenthood, he couldn't deal with it financially, he couldn't deal with it emotionally, and he wanted to place the baby for adoption, and you said okay. And then you went through the experience of having your baby, you looked at him, you fell in love, and you changed your mind.
Ma'am, I was
Just
already...
a second.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm reversing the situation. Do you think really that Mr. Boone could sue you for changing your mind and therefore being financially responsible for this baby for the next 21 years?
Ma'am, he has not helped me.
No. You're not paying attention. I don't know if you're not getting it. Do you think that it would be right or fair or legally appropriate for you to be sued by him, because the law would require that he support this baby until the baby is 21 years old? And you would come to me and say to me, Judge, I fell in love with this baby. I changed my mind. I couldn't give him up. You think he could sue you?
He's suing me for speakers.
Well,
I don't
he's
see
not. He may sue you for speakers, but that's not going to happen here. You have no claim against him. He changed his mind. He's allowed to change his mind, just as the law would give you an opportunity to change your mind soon. You know, within 24 hours, some places 48 hours. That's a very important time. So your parents are now responsible for taking care of your baby.
I am.
But you live at home.
Yes, ma'am, but I pay for everything. I've gotten no help from him. My parents have been helping me out as much as they can.
So I say to you, your parents are responsible for the baby. He says that it's been made very difficult for him to see his son. Why is that?
Because my lawyers have said that unless he helps out, he got arrested a week after the baby was born.
For what?
Theft of property. He got fired from his job. He stole. Even his little friend over there knows about it. He got arrested and fired from his job for stealing. He stole digital cameras, CD players. He stole cameras. He stole lots of stuff. I thought my birthday present was, you know, I don't know how he would have gotten $500 to get my birthday present, but I have that.
So?
And then I have, and
had he been arrested before?
I don't know. Not to my knowledge.
Listen to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Comes under the category of you picked him.
Yes, ma'am. I know.
And he's got an interest in seeing this child.
Yes.
Now, your lawyers may say to you, unless he contributes to the baby's support, he's not going to see him. But that's being very short-sighted. It's being very short-sighted because let's say a year from now or 2 years from now, he's working, he's got a good job, and he says, now I want to see the baby and I can contribute my $25 a week, whatever it is. And the judge said, yes, you're entitled to, you're the father. Well, then it's been 2 years or a year, and you're introducing a new person into your baby's life rather than have the baby see him regularly. You can't be selfish about that, and you can't be childish. 2 18-year-olds make a baby, but then you have to be a grown-up if you decided to keep him.
Ma'am, I've tried to be as grown-up as possible about this. I've tried to do everything that I possibly can. He's threatened me. He's threatened me since the day the baby was, since I took the baby home. He's threatened me since I took the baby home to take me to court. He said that he's going to get full custody of the baby. He would call my house.
That's not a threat. Just a minute.
Yes,
Miss Rose, that's not a threat. Now, I know you consider that a threat,
yes, ma'am.
but it isn't a threat.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Bobby Boone says the mother of his child, Teresa Rose, owes for the cost of car speakers. Teresa says Bobby owes her for interfering with the adoption of their baby.
The law in this country is that in regards to custody disputes between a mother and a father, nobody gets preference. The fact that he may have to prove that he has the ability, the capability, and that he'd be a better parent than you, that's a whole different ball of wax. But he has the legal right to do that. That's not a threat. But I think your lawyer is being very short-sighted if your lawyer says, don't let him see the baby. Very short-sighted. Now what do you want to say?
After the baby was born, you know, I was giving her money on a regular basis, and then she heard a bunch of stuff about me that wasn't true, and then tells me I can't see my son. I call her house. Her stepdad tells me I was not allowed to call there anymore. I wasn't allowed to come to her house. I was never going to see my son again. That's his words. He took me off before the baby was born to one of his friend's house, and they were telling me, you know, the best thing I can do is give him up and he'll pick up the pieces. He even mentioned it more than once that if he wanted me in the bottom of Smith Lake, that's where I would be. And up to the point where they told me I wasn't allowed to call or go over there anymore. I was giving her money on a regular basis.
Just 1 second. Have you gone to court with regard to custody and visitation?
Not yet.
Well, why don't you, sir?
Well, that's what I'm working on.
What do you mean working on it? You don't have to work on it. You have the right to go into your local family court or juvenile court, file a petition asking to legally be declared the father of this child, and asking for either custody, if you feel as if you're the better parent, or visitation, regular court-ordered visitation, and they will also fix a support schedule for you. The problem, Mr. Boone, is, and I don't want you to feel so angry at her parents, because her parents know that an 18-year-old who is now saddled with an infant, that changes her life forever, as it may change your life forever. Her parents clearly understand that if she were prepared to do that, that would probably be in her best interest to do it. If she were prepared to do that, if she felt as if it were in her best interest. So you are really affecting her, her family, her parents, the baby, and you have a job doing what?
Well, right now I'm working delivering pizza.
You're a pizza delivery person.
And
just pay attention. You're a pizza delivery person. Do you know how much the reports indicate it costs to raise a child in this country from age 0 to 21?
No, ma'am.
$260,000 if you want to educate your child, medically take care of your child, clothe your child, sporting equipment, sneakers, orthodontist, etc., etc., etc.
The job I have has excellent benefits, and he would be on my insurance, and you know I would take full responsibility for him, and that's what I.
Not on $12 an hour, you won't, Mr. Boone. In the meantime, you have a responsibility as a father, and that is to go to court and file a petition seeking to legally be declared the father of this child in a court. Say, right now I'm delivering pizzas. I'll give you a piece of what I earn. I want to support him, but I also want to see him. Go ahead.
Ma'am, I have done as much as I can to let him see the baby, even though my parents tell me not to.
Shh.
Even though my parents tell me not to talk to him and stuff, I will still call him. He never even asks about the baby. I'll sit there, I'll talk to him, he'll ask me how I am, he'll ask.
Mr. Boone, don't interrupt her.
He will never even ask how the baby is. He has not helped me, yes, the first month or so before he started saying, oh, I want my speakers back, because I made it perfectly clear to him that we were not going to get back together because he hurt me so badly. I'm sorry, that just is a very emotional thing. I was in the hospital, just had my baby, and I found out it was going to go home with him. His home is not a safe, I don't feel it is a
That's not emotionally hurting you. Listen to me. You said, I am giving this baby up. He said, I don't want to. I am going to fight to keep the baby so that I will have him in my life. That's not a trick.
I went to...
Shh. He had a choice. Just as I said to you, Miss Rose, you could have the same change of heart. You could have had the same change of heart. Fact is, you didn't. And it's going to be very difficult for you. But it's a big mistake not to let him see this baby in a comfortable circumstance so that he and the child develop a relationship now without acrimony, without fighting. Anyway, your lawsuit's dismissed, and Miss Rose, so is yours. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Oh my God, he lives in a nasty little trailer. They have roaches. They have 5 people living in a little single wide trailer.
She's let me see him 3 times in over a month.
He got fired for stealing a week after the baby was born.
You know, I've made some mistakes, but, you know, I've paid for my mistakes.
He only wanted to keep me, and that's just that.
142 in the matter of Bevilacqua versus Bonnet, and case number 143 in the matter of Kaiser versus Bonnet. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Perhaps we could finally put this unfortunate incident to rest. According to what I read, you were crossing the street.
Yes, ma'am.
And you allege that the defendant came into an intersection she shouldn't have been and hit you with her car.
Yes, ma'am.
She didn't severely injure you with her car. You jumped back. She hit you on your knee. Something. Where?
Right. Brushed me about here.
She brushed you. But you weren't hurt.
No, ma'am.
But you were angry. And then an interaction took place between the two of you that was most unfortunate on both of your parts, which resulted in you being arrested.
No, I was never arrested.
Taken into custody at some point, charged with an assault.
Charged, yes.
with an assault. All right.
Strong arm robbery.
Charged with something.
Okay.
And those charges were eventually dropped by the district attorney's office. But am I correct in reading between the lines in your complaint, sir, that there is a restraining order preventing you from going near the defendant?
Well, it's not a restraining order.
What is it?
I'm supposed to stay away from her, which is...
Is it an order for you to stay away from her?
It's not an official restraining order, no.
It is not?
No.
I mean, it's not written anywhere?
No.
The judge just told you to stay away from her?
Oh, no, it's stay away. It's not... Okay. I'm supposed to stay away from her until January 25th of 2002.
Where is that written?
I have it, Your Honor.
May I see it, please?
Those are the trial transcripts, Your Honor.
I'm just looking at the order because he's not sure it was an order. So after this case is over, Mr. Bevilacqua, you are directed to attend 3 hours of anger management classes by the 15th of March of 2001 and stay away from the victim.
Yes.
That was the order, signed by a judge.
Right.
Right. I mean, did you think I was just a fake person here that they picked out of, you know, that they picked out of a supermarket? Didn't you think that I had any legal experience at all, sir?
Of course.
All right. So, Mr. Bevilacqua, what you want is all kinds of damages from the defendant because you were put through a court process, you were embarrassed, whatever. You want damages in the amount of $5,000. The defendant is cross-claiming. She says that you did, in fact, assault her, and she is counterclaiming for the exact same amount, $5,000. So we've reached a point where you were brushed by defendant's car. Pick it up from there, Mr. Bevilacqua.
Okay. I fell back. I yelled, yo. I looked up to see the driver of the car flash her middle finger at me and take off.
Okay.
Continued walking home, got up the street, and saw a car that looked just like the one that had just sideswiped me, frantically trying to get into this parking spot. And I just went up and said, excuse me, was that you who just turned on to 3rd off of Rose? And she said, yes. And then I said, well, you just sideswiped me with your car. And she said, own exact words?
Of course.
Super. She said, you, I don't care, I'm tired, I just came from the airport. And then I said, no, wrong answer. Okay, you ask me if I'm okay, you tell me that you're sorry, and then I go. And then she exploded.
What do you mean she exploded?
She screamed, don't you tell me what to do, you stupid... Swung her fist at me.
Did she hit you?
Blocked it.
And what did you do?
That was it. Walked, I said, you know, told her she was crazy and she should watch it or she's going to kill somebody, and I walked away.
And then what happened?
I got about 10 feet away and boom, got it from behind. Turned around and it was her screaming. Screaming threats, screaming, you know, obscenities, everything. And waving her sunglasses. I mean, there was a little scratch in her sunglasses that had fallen out of her hand.
How did they fall out of her hand?
Because they were in her hand when she hit me, along with her keys.
Did she ever ask you for your name? During that period of time, she was asking you for your name.
She may have, but you know what?
Okay.
She was crazy.
That's not what I asked.
I'm sorry. Yes, she probably.
Don't be a wise guy in here, sir.
I'm sorry.
There's only one wise person in here.
Yes, ma'am.
That's Bird.
So I couldn't go home because she was following me. She followed. So I just was walking around. She followed me for almost an hour, screaming. And at one point, we were near my apartment, and I wanted her to go away. I turned and tried to reason with her. And I said, "Listen, your road rage, or whatever drugs are on, are making you completely insane. Please leave me alone." And she screamed no, that I had to give her $200 and some for her sunglasses. And I said, I didn't break your sunglasses, I'm not paying for them. And then she said, oh yeah, well, I'm going to tell the police you assaulted me and they'll make you pay. And then I came to the store at the corner of 5th and Rose. And my girlfriend, Tamara, comes walking out of the store because she had been there, like buying something. And Tamara sees this going on, comes over and goes, oh my God, are you okay? And she goes after Tamara. She starts screaming threats and obscenities at Tam, starting with, do you know? She's going to have Tamara thrown in jail. Goes over behind the car, screaming, you're not going anywhere, you blah, 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 I'm going to track you down, blah. So she's blocking the exit. I went up to her from the side and said exactly, hey lady, yo, I'm leaving. Got about 15 feet away and then boom, got it again, turned to Tamara and screamed, go, get out of here, I'll deal with her, go. So I let her scream at me for another few minutes and then take off. Cut through the alley, go to a friend's place.
Okay. Apparently, you got her license plate number.
That's correct.
And through that, you got his name.
That's correct.
Okay. Police contacted you. What out-of-pocket expenses did you have as a result of this incident, sir?
$12,500.
For what?
Legal fees.
You have a bill for that?
Oh, sure.
Okay. And I'd like to see that. Then I have a couple of pointed questions because I let you tell your story.
Here you go, thanks.
I see the checks made payable directly to the lawyer. Mr. Bevilacqua.
Yes.
I read your complaint very carefully, and what I want to know first is, you saw her park her car, and you had a conversation with her, and clearly you could see that you weren't getting anywhere. Why didn't you, before this thing escalated, just go over to her car and take down her license plate number? Go over to a phone booth, take out your cell phone, call the police and say, license plate number so-and-so just hit me and took off. I was a pedestrian. Wouldn't that have been the smart thing to do, sir?
Yes, it was, and I regret it now.
That would have been the smart thing to do.
May I explain?
No, that would have
Okay.
been the smart thing to do.
Yes,
Any
ma'am.
explanation would be stupid.
Okay.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Stephen Bevilacqua says he was falsely arrested for assault because Ann Bonnet lied to police. Stephen claims it all started when Ann nearly ran him over.
Now, why don't you tell me, you're going through the intersection and you were in the intersection at that point illegally?
I made a right-hand turn from a busy street onto a residential street. While I was going through the crosswalk, I saw a gentleman step off the far side of the crosswalk. I continued down the road and then heard this screaming and looked in my rearview mirror, and I saw a gentleman screaming at me and giving me the finger.
That was this gentleman?
Yes.
Now, I want to know, first, do you have any of the police reports?
I do.
I'd like to see them all, please.
It's the LAPD.
Where had you been coming from, Dr. Bonnet?
Coming from the airport.
Where had you been?
San Francisco.
For how long?
For 4 days, sir. Ma'am.
What were you doing there?
I was taking an exam.
How many days was the exam?
It was a 3-hour exam on Sunday, the day of the incident.
So it was a pretty stressful day.
It was.
Okay, continue.
So I went through the intersection and heard the screaming, looked behind,
Saw him. You didn't know you would hit him. Go
I
ahead.
had not hit him, Your Honor.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I believe that you probably brushed him. You didn't hurt him, but you didn't stop your car.
No,
now,
I didn't
keep
stop
going.
my car.
Keep going.
I also held up my right middle finger in the rearview mirror. I continued up and over a hill, another 1,000 feet, to my residence and parked on the right-hand side of the street. I was getting my stuff out of the car when a man came, who I did not recognize, came running up to me and said, "Did you just turn onto this street?" I said, "Yes." He started swearing at me at that point and said, "You are the so-and-so who almost hit me. Do you realize that?" And then you gave me the finger. And I said, "You gave me the finger first." At which point he became enraged, lunged at me with his right hand, scratched my right face, took my glasses, threw them on the ground, and they broke. The glasses are here, and I have photographs as well.
Well, I'd like to see the photographs, and could you please indicate in this police report where it indicates that you were injured? Take a look at these police reports and show me where it indicates you were
I have
injured.
a photo of the injury, ma'am.
I don't want to see the photo. Well, I'll look at the photos of the injury. I want to see in the police reports, because they're voluminous, where police always indicate what the marks are that they've seen, what was the complaint. I want to see where the police officers noted any injuries to you.
Here at the bottom it says she took pictures of the scratch to my face.
Let me see.
Last paragraph.
Now, I want to see where the officer wrote down on a report. You see, on the first page of this report, he writes down type of property taken, receipt, nature of the injury, none, according to the police officer. Nature of injury, none. Why?
I wanted to find out if they wanted to take notice. They took the picture.
Yeah, they noticed nothing. Neither do I. I noticed what looks like a pimple on your forehead.
I was lucky it was a small scratch.
I said I noticed what it looks like a pimple on your forehead. I'm very smart. I don't think his body came into contact with your forehead, madam. I believe that he might have knocked the sunglasses off of your face. Maybe he did that, and maybe the sunglasses were in your hand, as he says, and they fell to the ground, or he knocked them to the ground. I believe that that's possible, too. But I don't believe that he ever put his hands on you. Anybody who would believe that, looking at this picture of this pimple, is a fool. Go ahead. Keep going.
I picked up the sunglasses and I said, "You just broke my sunglasses. You can't do that." He said, "Yes, I can. This is road rage. I can do anything I want to you."
Fine. At that point, Dr. Bonnet, what would a smart, intelligent, educated person do?
I
would go home.
He knew where I lived, ma'am. He was at my house. I was afraid of him.
So you follow him in the street? That's what you did. You followed him in the street.
That's correct.
And after you followed him in the street, he says you were yelling obscenities at him. Subsequently to that, you accused him of a strong-armed robbery. That's what the police report says.
That's correct.
Well, that was a lie.
That
was a lie.
It's not a lie, Your Honor.
Sure it is. Just like it would be a lie if he said, "I'm filing a report, assault with a deadly weapon." Your car. Car's a deadly weapon. You were where you shouldn't have been. There was a four-way stop sign. He's a pedestrian. He had the right of way. Yes, there was a four-way stop sign. That's what it says right here. If he's out in the street, you have no business moving. So you touched him. That's assault with a deadly weapon. Would that have been overkill, Dr. Bonnet?
That would have been, since it didn't happen.
That would have been overkill if he reported that. Clearly, he wasn't injured. He got up, he walked, he wasn't injured. But he expected somebody to stop and say, "I'm sorry, forgive me, I didn't realize that I hit you. Are you okay?" Instead, you're stressed. According to the police reports, you've gotten 3 hours sleep for the last 5 days because you were studying for these exams. You come home to the airport, they lost your luggage. It was a long day. It was a miserable day. And you acted inappropriately, especially when you filed a complaint against not only him, stand up, but her.
Your Honor, I did not file a complaint.
Oh, yes, you did. When you report to the police a strong-armed robbery and that she's driving the car because you wanted to be able to get his name, and the police go to her house and intimidate her and walk in with handcuffs and tell her that there's complaint of a strong-armed robbery and she's driving the getaway car all over your lousy pair of sunglasses?
The robbery was not the sunglasses, Your Honor. He took a piece of paper from me. That was what the police...
Because you were acting like a nut!
I was not.
You were acting like a nut! Maybe you were stressed, maybe you were tired, but you were acting like a nut. Any smart woman, if they're faced with somebody who is acting inappropriately, and you think he's acting inappropriately, I don't necessarily think so. You could have killed him in your state of stress, and you just kept going. And aside from that, you flipped him off. I would have been infuriated too, but you're a woman, and slightly more vulnerable. So if he comes up to you and if he's furious and he knocks your sunglasses to the ground, you take your sunglasses and you say, "Forget it." How many blocks did you follow him?
He followed...
How many blocks did you follow him?
2. May I tell the rest of my story?
Sure. Because then you're trying to get her license plate. You have a piece of paper in your hand. I read the reports, right? He comes up to you and grabs the piece of paper out of your hand. Is that right?
That's
so far, right? I wouldn't want a nut like you to know where my girlfriend lived either. You were acting like a nut. And then you report that as a strong-arm robbery with her driving the getaway car?
The police decided that that was a strong-arm robbery, the keeping of the paper, which he later returned to the police. He had it in his possession.
I find that you're responsible for his legal fees. And the most I can give him is $5,000, which is exactly what I'm giving him, and I am dismissing your counterclaim. You acted inappropriately on that day, and you should have apologized from the very beginning. Case over. Your counterclaim is dismissed, and I'm awarding him $5,000. Now, you sit down.
Thank you.
I want you to describe to me, Miss Kaiser.
Yes.
I want you to describe to me, after this whole incident is over, you go home. Your boyfriend tells you take off. The nut is following you, right? She's got your license plate number. How would you receive this first alert from the police?
3 policemen showed up on my door, banged on it, and let me know that if I didn't open the door immediately that they were going to come in.
What did they say?
They came in and actually started asking me questions about my car. I didn't really know what they were getting at, and they considered me to be evasive, and started telling me that if I didn't tell them what they wanted to know, they were going to arrest me on the spot. And since it was a Sunday, I wouldn't be able to contact a lawyer, I wouldn't be able to be bailed out or arraigned, and I would have to spend the night in jail.
What do they want to know? They want to know his name.
They wanted to know who was driving my car. They basically were backing into asking me his name, and I honestly didn't know what they wanted at the beginning. When they did, I told them actually fairly early in the conversation, but once it started getting this detailed, that I would much prefer to speak to them after I spoke to an attorney. And once again, we were back to, you're going into prison, now put your hands out, we've got cuffs.
So how long did they stay in your house?
About 2.5 hours. They kept me in my house. After the hour of questioning, I had to wait an hour and a half until she came down, looked at my car, identified it, and left.
So the next day it was over?
Actually, it was over in terms of my experiences with the police, and that was frightening, but it was not over in that both the police that we talked to and the Santa Monica City Attorney's Office were still considering pressing charges against me.
As being a co-conspirator in a strong-armed robbery?
The driver of the getaway car in a strong-arm robbery.
You see how ridiculous things got?
I never accused her of anything, Your Honor.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the case of Kaiser v. Bonnet in the amount of $2,500.
Fair enough.
Step up. Yes. A couple of things to say. Could you have behaved better that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Certainly did nothing criminal that day. I find that based upon what little I've heard, and from looking at these photographs and listening to the story, you did nothing criminal that day. Certainly nothing that would have required you to spend $12,500 for a lawyer. I find, however, that despite the fact that he could have behaved differently that day, I'm merely taking down your license plate, you were the precipitating factor in all of this trouble, because stressed out as you may be, you didn't have the right of way, you brushed him with your car, he doesn't look like a nut to me that he would follow you if you hadn't even tapped him with your car. See, all he was looking for was an apology. But you kept going, and were rude besides. You precipitated it. You pay. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step back. This is case number. All parties on Habib versus Fields. Step forward, please.
27-year-old tutor Nafisa Habib is suing her ex-boyfriend's friend, 28-year-old bakery worker Anise Fields, for smashing her windshield with a baseball bat.
Ms. Habib, both you and the defendant have a child.
Yes.
And that child was fathered by the same person.
Yes.
So that's how you know each other.
Yes, ma'am.
And I would assume that you don't like each other.
I have no problem with that.
Well, then you think she doesn't like you.
I guess, yes.
Because it's your claim that she smashed the windshield of your car.
Yes, ma'am.
When did this take place?
On January 12, 2001.
Where?
His uncle's house, where he was staying there at the time.
This is the father?
Yes.
Of both children?
Yes, ma'am.
You have any other children?
Yes, I do.
How many?
4.
4 other ones?
4 children altogether.
Altogether. How old is your child?
My child is 3.
And yours?
He's 3. My child's 1 month older than her son.
Tell me how it happened that you happened to be in the same location.
January 12th, he called me and asked me to bring over my daughter. He doesn't see her a lot, so I brought her over.
To where he was staying?
Yes. While we were there, I was downstairs in like the lounge area in the basement, and he was upstairs. And I heard some banging on the door. I thought he had locked himself outside the house. So I called upstairs, Rude Boy, did you lock yourself outside?
What's his name?
Rude Boy. By that time, he came downstairs. He said, Anise is outside.
Anise?
Yes.
That's you?
Me. Yeah. I said, are you going to let her in? He said, no, she's upset. She's going to want to fight. I said, fight who? That's when she busted the basement window. She had a bat in her hand, and I saw her. Rude Boy ran upstairs. I stayed downstairs. They were outside. I heard her yelling, what do you think, I'm stupid? Is she in there? Is she in there? I heard him yelling. He said, I'm going to call the police. He came in the house. Apparently she left. He came downstairs. He didn't call the police. We started cleaning up the glass. At that time, I said, rude boy, let me drop you off at work. When I went to my car, opened my door, I saw the glass on my seat and saw she bust my windshield. I switched cars with my father and I went to her house. She invited me in. We talked for a while. The end result of the conversation was that Anise said she was going to pay for my windshield when she got her school money because she didn't have any money at the time. The very next day, after Anise busted my windshield, she called me and she apologized continuously. Nafisa, I'm sorry, this is not me. I don't go around busting girls' windshields. I felt sorry for Anise because I know how it is for a brother to allow you to believe that it's all about you and it's not all about you. So I felt sorry for her. I said, no problem, Anise, when you get the money.
So, bottom line is, you saw her with the bat break the basement window.
Yes.
But not your car window.
No.
But she did, in fact, tell you that she would pay for it. Okay, let me hear you.
She's lying. Basically.
Why don't you just tell me what happened? You
went
over
I wasn't there. No, I was not there. No.
Just a second. Are you telling me that you never went to the house?
Yes, that's what I'm telling you.
I think you have to come up with a better story than that. I'm going to tell you why. Because I believe her when she says that you came to the house.
Mm-hmm.
I believe her when she says that she saw you with a bat in your hand and that there was glass downstairs in the basement window. So I think we're going to start over again.
She's lying. He lives there. So he was there. So he can tell you. I was not there.
All right.
She's lying. I don't know. My basement window never got broke. I don't know how you can see somebody break a basement window from the basement. I don't know what she's talking about. Prior to this, she said I broke her window, busted her car up. She told my grandmother I did it. She let a friend of mine use her car. He crashed her car up. She said I did it. I don't know nothing about what this is about.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, Miss Judy, Judge Judy. I'm trying to be calm because I want to cry because I cannot believe that Jamar would sit up here and lie. He was supposed to watch Hanifa, but he said that he couldn't watch her. I didn't even know he was going to be here. Rude boy, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Shh. Don't talk to him.
I'm
Can
sorry.
I see the police report, please?
Yes, ma'am. Miss Judge Judy, he also told me, Rude Boy himself told me that Anise had intentions several times to pay you for your car windshield, but things that came up. When I went to her house, I met her mother, I met her daughter, Asia.
You brought your daughter
I
to
met
my
her
house.
son.
No. Okay, just a minute. Wait.
Oh, God.
I can't believe you, Rude Boy.
I can't believe you.
Oh, it's over.
Never was anything.
Whatever, Rude Boy. Whatever.
If you talk amongst yourselves, you're leaving.
Excuse me.
Tell me why you reported this to the police 2 days later.
Well, I believed Anise. When she said she was going to pay me for the windshield, and when she called me the very next day after it happened, I believed her. My father said, Nafisa, cover your tracks. If you get a police report, then at least you have that in case you have to take her to court. I did not believe it was going to have to go this far. It's only $183. I'm not asking her for cab money or the inconvenience she put me. My sister had to come and get me several times to pick up my children. I worked 2 jobs. I raised 4 children by myself. I don't have time for this. This is so juvenile.
Mr. Jones, do you currently have a relationship with any of the 3 or 4 women?
This one here.
This
No,
one.
he doesn't.
Shh.
I'm sorry.
No.
I apologize.
No.
I'm sorry.
So you currently have a relationship with Anise.
Yes.
How long have you had that relationship with Anise?
Since last year, we started dating each other and being in a relationship last summer.
How many children do you two have together?
1.
Your other 2 children, do they have the same mother?
No.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a teacher aide, bus aide.
Nothing.
Shh.
I'm sorry. I apologize. He's lying. I'm sorry.
Well, how was she taking me to work if she came over?
Just listen to me.
She's making up stuff.
Listen to me.
I'm sorry. I understand. I apologize.
Teachers' aid, bus aides don't
Yes.
make a lot of money.
Small money.
Small money doesn't make 4 children.
No, I make 4 children, but my money take care of my children.
Impossible. Impossible. Okay. Do you work, Anise?
Yes.
What kind of work do you do?
I work at a bakery.
How many children do you have?
5.
Do all 5 children live with you?
Yes.
You make a lot of money in the bakery?
No, I don't. I also go to school.
How is your family subsidized?
From me working and going to school.
How much money do you make at the bakery?
I make $5.50 an hour.
$5.50 an hour gross does not support 6 people, and he certainly doesn't make enough to support you and your children. What kind of work do you do?
I tutor children full-time, and I work at a floral shop part-time.
How many children do you have?
4.
What other support do you get for your children?
I receive food stamps, and that helps a great deal.
How old are your other children, Mr. Jones?
10, 2.
So you have a new child, not with either one of these two women.
Yes.
And shortly after that child was born, you renewed your relationship with a niece. Is that right?
Yes.
Excuse me, Miss.
Shh. $183 is what the windshield cost you?
Yes, ma'am.
Pay it. $183. Judgment for the plaintiff.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Yeah, this is case number 227 on the calendar in the matter of Blackman versus Miller Vaughn. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Who is Mr. Miller?
I am.
Would you sit down, Mr. Vaughn, please? And is this your wife?
Yes, ma'am.
Why don't you have a seat?
Thank you.
Mr. Blackman, this is an interesting case. I don't think I've ever tried one like this before. You knew the defendant.
I met him first time at our wedding, actually. He was a friend of a guest.
And according to your complaint, there came a time when you and the defendant arranged to have a young woman from the Philippines, who was, I believe, a cousin of your wife's,
Distant cousin, yes.
come to New York for the purposes of marrying him.
Yes, ma'am.
She came to the United States.
Yes, ma'am.
He didn't marry her.
No, ma'am, he did not.
And you want him to pay for all of the expenses that you incurred, which you say that he had agreed to pay. In addition, at some point, a check was given to you for $1,500, and then payment was stopped on that check, but that check was written by Mr. Vaughn at the defendant's request. So that's why he is a co-defendant. But he's really a nominal co-defendant. Okay, so when was your wedding, and when did you meet the defendant?
In February of '99, the defendant was at our wedding. A few days later, he came to a Valentine's dance party, and that's where I spoke to him about our site, FilipinoGirlsTours.com. I said,
No. Speak slowly, because we're missing. You had a website?
Yes, ma'am, a small business. I met my wife through Pen Pal Club, and when she came over, she goes, I have many friends that would like to come too, so we put up a free Pen Pal site where people could get free addresses and phone numbers, stuff like that, and correspond. I don't know if he first saw that site, or I really don't know, but he came to our wedding, and then at the party he was there. And I said, well, you know, we do have a cousin of hers that's real cute on our site. Would you like to meet her? And he says, well, I'd be interested. So I gave him the contact information, the address, the phone number. She did not have email at the time. And from there, it progressed. They got to know each other well.
They got to know each other via mail?
Mail and phone, yes.
And phone?
Many phone calls. Okay. And he went over there on his own.
He went to the Philippines?
Yes.
And visited, that is correct. When did you go to the Philippines, sir?
It was April or May. I don't remember exactly what the date was.
Of 1999?
Yes.
Okay. And you went and you met this young lady? Go ahead.
Yes, when he returned, he relayed to me how happy he was, how he would treat her so nicely, that he really loved her. And he was very frustrated that they were never left alone this whole time. And in the Philippines, most girls are very chaperoned. This particular woman had never dated really in her life. Very, very sheltered. And I helped him with his paperwork to bring her over because we had just started our site and I wanted to get more experience in the fiancé visa part and what have you. So I did all of his paperwork for him.
What's a fiancé visa?
In order to bring a girlfriend, fiancé to the United States from another country, you must file paperwork with our government saying that you met her, prove that you met her, and that it's a legitimate relationship and you want to marry her. And you bring her over, you do all this paperwork.
Do you have a copy of that application?
I do not have a copy of his, per se.
I need a copy of his.
I do not. I have the form, but I have all the financial responsibility forms that he signed.
Can I see that, please?
Yes, ma'am. Saying that he would be responsible for her as long as she was here. Okay. I've highlighted the...
Okay, and you signed this financial affidavit, sir, on the 31st of August, 1999. Is that right?
I'd have to see it.
Sure.
Yes.
Good. So you signed a financial affidavit in August of 1999 agreeing to be financially responsible for this young lady when she came to this country.
Right. It said that I would be responsible so that she wouldn't be a burden upon our state.
That's correct, but that's only one of the affidavits that you signed. That's why I read the second one very carefully, which is, the first one says that you agree that she will never become a public charge while she's here. But the second affidavit that you signed, sir, says that a plaintiff may seek specific performance of my support obligation, and you acknowledge that any federal, state, local, or private agency that pays any means-tested public benefit on behalf of the sponsored immigrants has standing to sue you to meet my financial obligations. Okay, I got it. Now, when did the young lady come here?
She arrived on Friday, the 28th or 29th of January, I believe. The wife and I actually picked her up at the airport because the defendant said he could not get off work to pick her up. So we drove to Atlanta from Asheville, a considerable distance, picked her up, brought her that evening, left him at his apartment, where I even helped him move to. That night, they were alone. It was Super Bowl weekend. That Sunday, they came over. The girl was very, very upset with herself, what have you. Mr. Miller had talked her into giving up something very precious to her, which was her virginity, which is something these girls really hold proper to them. Because he had spent so much money to bring her here and so much effort, she figured, well, he's going to marry me, it's okay. The way things worked out, she found out she did not know we had loaned him the money to bring her here because that wasn't...
Now tell me about that loan.
Mr. Miller was in the process of moving, and I had gotten to know him a little bit, doing his paperwork for him and what have you, and he seemed to be a very nice fellow. So I helped him move, brought his washing machines over to my house to store because he didn't have a place to put them, things like that. After he moved, we picked up the girl, brought her to his house and what have you.
Tell me about the money.
Oh, the money. During this move, he's saying he had put deposits down for this, for the phone, for the apartment and everything, and he was very low on money. And I figured the girl's a cousin of my wife, so I said, would you like to have a loan to bring her here? I could loan you the money for the plane ticket as long as it did not take too long to pay me back. And he said, oh, I could pay you back in 90 days, no problem. I just started a new job.
How much was the ticket?
The ticket itself was, I don't know, he sent the money to her. I gave him $675 cash.
Is that correct? That he gave you $675 in cash?
No.
He never gave you any money?
No.
He's lying, Your Honor.
Okay, so that's in dispute. $675 in cash you gave him.
Yes, ma'am, and I even asked my wife if I could take it out of our savings account. She's a joint member of that account, and she said yes, because it was for her cousin. That'd be fine.
Okay. Go ahead.
I had loaned him the money. I picked him up the day before she was to arrive. He called me and said, I can't get off work. Could you please pick her up? I said, sure, I'd be glad to. We went down, picked her up, brought her to the apartment that weekend.
Okay, then you told me about the problem.
Right.
When she came to your house. All right.
Right.
Did he ever tell you that this wasn't going to work out?
The first indication I had of any problem was that Thursday, he did not show up one night. He kept on showing up later each night, coming home, and Wednesday night he didn't show up at all. Thursday morning, the girl called me. I picked her up, brought her home. That Thursday evening, he called me. He didn't have keys to get into the apartment. He said, oh, I had to spend all night in the hospital with my son last night, and he gave me this story. His son was real sick, and he stayed there, and so I met him at the apartment and told him how badly she was hurt. And he says, well, I love her. This is not going to happen. Let me get cleaned up, I'll come over. That was the last I saw him in person until our criminal court trial came up. He called me the next day and said...
What criminal court trial?
For the $1,500 check.
Oh, okay.
That was dismissed due to, it was a post-dated check.
Okay.
North Carolina laws.
When for the first time, I asked you, did he tell you that this was not going to work out?
He called me on the phone that week, I believe it was that Thursday evening, and said, I'm not going to marry her. And I said, well, why? And he says, well, that's personal, I'm not going to tell you. I've got to go out of town this following weekend. When I get back, I'll get with you. And he never did call back. Mr. Vaughn called me and said that he had a check that he had written to cover her expenses for her plane ticket, my loan, a small amount of living expenses until she went home. And I was to pick the check up at the apartment. Well, we didn't have a key. We couldn't get in.
Well, you must have said something to him about money. You owe me some money. You owe me the money that I gave you, $675,
actually,
and the return, and her return flight as well.
Right. It was actually him that volunteered the money at first to pay for her plane ticket home, because he knows this is a responsibility that he signed, that he is responsible for this woman, and if they do not get married after 90 days, he has to return her. It's an agreement he's made with the U.S. government.
Okay.
So he was aware of his obligation.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Carl and Lori Jen Blackman say former friend Chris Miller borrowed money to fly in his girlfriend from the Philippines. Chris says there was no agreement to pay the money back.
When did she go back to the Philippines?
It wasn't until September.
Why not?
Because, well, she was so ashamed of herself, and in the Philippines, and I do have evidence from doctors that treat women in the Philippines.
I'm not interested in that because it's really not germane. She's not here. She was, for emotional reasons, she didn't go back.
Right, and plus the check bounced. We could not get it to cover. 5 times I took it, it would not. Each time I took it to the bank itself, they said, I'm sorry, there's not enough funds, and then I ran it through my bank to have it stamped.
But that was $1,500, and that would have covered her return flight to the Philippines.
And my loan.
And your loan to him.
Yes, ma'am, and a small amount of living expenses for a week or two.
So the whole thing was $1,500. So how did $1,500 become $5,000 that you're suing him for?
Well, we never could cash the check. It was never any good. So she stayed with us. She was real ashamed and didn't want to return home, and she did not have the money to return home because the check was canceled. And I had told Mr. Vaughn about a week after the check, when I first tried to cash it, I said, well, why isn't there any money there? And he said, well, my wife wrote a check. It'll be good in a couple of days. And I said, well, yeah, I think Cheryl may be staying a while anyways because she's very afraid about going home.
Okay, I got it. So the rest of this money, $3,500, is for her living expenses.
Basically, and attorney's fees, and we had to buy her clothes. She had no clothing other than summer clothing, and this was middle of winter, so we had to buy her clothing.
Well, she should have gone home immediately.
With what money?
With the money that you would have lent her and then sued them for the $1,500 and it would have been over with.
I don't have thousands of dollars in the bank.
This isn't fair. We're not talking thousands. We're talking about a return airplane ticket.
But it was Mr. Miller's responsibility to return her.
How much was the return air ticket?
When I returned her, it was $640, and it was during the low time of year. In January, it's a high travel time. It could be as much as $1,000 or more.
All right, Mr. Miller, let's hear it.
Well, went over there, met her, did all the paperwork and everything to bring her over here. Then in December, when I talked to her, I told her, I said, I don't think it's going to work.
You mean December before she got here?
Right.
Why did you tell her that in December?
Well, I had met my wife. We had dated, I guess it was about 8 or 9 years ago. And we had met, and we started seeing each other. And that's when I told her, I told Cheryl, I said, it's just not going to work.
So you told the young lady that you didn't think it was going to work out. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. What happened next?
She came here. Carl picked her up at the airport.
Well, when you told her in December that it wasn't going to work out, she hadn't been here yet. Why didn't you cancel these papers?
I didn't know what, she was already in Manila. I didn't know what to do.
You mean she had traveled to Manila in order to come here?
Yeah, you have to go to Manila. You have to go to the embassy in order to come to the United States.
The interview
so she had already done the legwork there and was on her way here, and they had been using your papers to process her.
Right.
Okay. So you knew she was going to come?
Right.
In January.
Well, I told her not to come. She came anyway. Carl brought her to the apartment. I told her, I said, look, it's just not going to work out. I think it was like two or three nights I stayed there, and I think that was it.
Why did you have
sex? Don't speak. Mr. Miller, when she stayed at your apartment for 2 or 3 nights, did you share a room together?
Yes.
Why?
Because there's only bed. I didn't have a couch or anything. I just moved.
So you shared a bed together?
Yes.
While he was living with
the other girl. Mr. Blackman, he was very quiet. You have to be very quiet.
Yes, ma'am.
What arrangements did you make to get her a return ticket to go home?
When me and her had split up, or she had left, went to Carl's house.
That was just a few days later.
Right. Carl had went around telling everybody he was going to have me for abandonment, had me put in prison, $12,000 fine.
Prove it.
Don't know. Mr. Blackman,
know if he can
this
or
is
not.
the last time I say that to you, sir. The next time I dismiss your case. Do you understand? I control it here.
Yes, ma'am.
It goes in an order. You, then him. Then if I have any questions. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you used to controlling things?
Not really.
Uh-huh. Does your husband like to control things?
She wears the pants.
What?
She wears the pants.
I somehow doubt that. Go ahead.
So once I heard what he was trying to do, I didn't know what to do, so I called my congressman. They put me in touch with liaisons. I told her what was going on. I said, I need to stop the fiancé visa. She said, okay. Well, I talked to Carl. He said, look, you pay $1,500. It'll all be said and done. It'll be over with. I said, okay, fine. It'll be done. I'd closed out my account. Mark Bond, he was a good friend of mine. I said, you mind writing a check? I said, here's the money. He said, no problem. Gave him $1,500. Well, Carl Blackman, in the meantime, had called and told her he was going to sue me, that I was going to prison, that on the documentation it says that I am liable for everything. Well, told him no, he's not. He offered to give you the money to send her back. You told him no. You've told me no, that you're not going to send her back, and there's nothing you can do to him. So then that's when he tried to go to court, get us on a criminal offense, and then we're here.
So that you stopped payment on the check that you had given him?
Yes.
That's what happened?
Yes.
But you understand that you owe him this money?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, you do. And for no other reason, Mr. Miller, than because of your actions, this young lady traveled from the Philippines to the United States. Now, you may have told her a week or two before she got on that plane while she had traveled to Manila, according to you, to begin this process, that it wasn't going to work out. And if it wasn't going to work out, then what you do when Mr. Blackman brings her to your home is put her in the car and you say, I'm bringing you back to Mr. Blackman's house. I told you this wasn't going to work out. You don't take her to your bed for a few nights and then return her. Bad sportsmanship. Not moral conduct. You don't do a test run with somebody that you know is not going to be a permanent part of your life, especially under the circumstances where you met her in the Philippines, which was on her turf. According to what the plaintiff tells me, which I believe, one of the frustrations that you had is that you were not alone very much because of her strict upbringing in her family. So she comes to a strange place, she comes to a strange home, she comes to a person that she's known for, what, a week or two? Is that all you knew her? I mean, other than the mail and the telephone calls.
I was over there about four or 5 days.
So it was less than a week.
Mm-hmm.
And she's vulnerable because she's here. She doesn't know anybody. I don't know how her English is, but she's certainly very vulnerable. And you took advantage of that. Bad show. And I can understand when Mr. Blackman says that there was an embarrassment that she had in going home right away. And she had to emotionally prepare herself to go home because she was going home different from the way she came. How old was she?
25.
And how old are you?
I just turned 35.
And you have a child.
Yes.
I see that from here. Were you married before?
Yes.
Once before?
Twice.
So you've been around the flagpole a couple of times,
I
as
guess you could
opposed
say
to this
that.
young lady.
I don't know if she had or hadn't. I would say not.
The only other expense that I haven't addressed is your attorney's fees. Now, you said you had attorney's fees.
Yes, we tried to change her visa so she could stay here without going
That's
home.
not his problem.
Yes.
That's your problem. That's her cousin. If you tried to change her visa,
Yes, ma'am.
then you're doing that out of the goodness of your heart. That has nothing to do with his relationship with you.
Yes, ma'am.
I certainly believe that you are entitled to be reimbursed for certain of your expenses.
Yes, ma'am.
And certainly for the $1,500 plus your airfare, I believe that you did provide airfare both ways for this young lady. And I believe that she probably needed a period of adjustment before she went back.
Yes, ma'am.
Not she came 1 week, she goes back the next. Kind of embarrassing. But I would say, Mr. Blackman, that she's not here. I cannot inquire of her. But I would say a month or so should have been sufficient time for her to get over this and to go home.
Mm-hmm.
Did she stay with you the entire time?
Yes, ma'am, she did.
Okay. So on your claim, Mr. Blackman, I'm awarding you $2,500.
Thank you.
The $1,500 that he was supposed to have given you, plus $1,000 a month for the month that I believe would have been sufficient time for her to prepare herself to go home. So on your claim, sir, I am awarding you $2,500.
Thank you.
Didn't do the right thing, sir. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step.
বন্ধুরা তাসিন আপু কমেন্ট করেছে আপু মুখের লোম কিভাবে দূর করব প্লিজ রিপ্লাই আপু ওকে আপু মুখের লোম সমস্যা কিন্তু তোমাদের অনেকেরই তো সেজন্য সবার জন্য আমি এই ভিডিওটি করছি তো মুখের লোম দূর করার জন্য তোমাদেরকে রেমেডি তৈরি করতে হবে তো রেমেডিটা তৈরি করার জন্য একটা বাটির মধ্যে নিয়ে নেবে 1 চামচ পরিমাণে বেসন এর সঙ্গে নেবে 1 চামচ পরিমাণে মুলতানি মাটি এরপর নেবে হচ্ছে 1/2 চামচ পরিমাণে মধু এরপর নেবে হচ্ছে 1 চামচ পরিমাণে লেবুর রস তো এই সবগুলো জিনিসকে খুব ভালো মতো মিশিয়ে নেবে তারপর দেখবে যে একটা হার্ড হয়ে গেছে যদি খুব বেশি হার্ড হয়ে যায় তাহলে একটু পানি দিয়ে একটু পাতলা করে নেবে খুব বেশি পাতলা না মোটামুটি একটা পেস্টের মতো তৈরি করে নিলে হবে এরপরে পুরো মুখে তোমরা একটু মোটা লেয়ার করে লাগিয়ে নেবে তো এবার হচ্ছে তোমাদেরকে আসল কাজ করতে হবে যেটা হচ্ছে কি একদম পুরোপুরিভাবে শুকিয়ে ফেলতে হবে যতক্ষণ টাইম লাগে কারো 20 মিনিট লাগতে পারে কারো 25 মিনিট বা 30 মিনিট লাগতে পারে যতক্ষণে লাগুক না কেন একদম পুরোপুরিভাবে শুকিয়ে ফেলতে হবে মানে এটা যেন একদম ফেটে ফেটে একদম ইয়ের মতো মাটির মতো রুক্ষ হয়ে যেন শুকিয়ে যায় তো ওরকম যখন ফেটে ফেটে শুকিয়ে যাবে তখন তোমরা কি করবে উল্টা দিক থেকে মানে নিচের দিক থেকে উপরের দিকে এভাবে করে উল্টা পোর্শনে তোমরা হচ্ছে এটাকে এভাবে করে ডলবে আর কি, মানে ঘষবে, মানে উঠিয়ে ফেলার জন্য। এতে করে কি হবে, সেই রেমেডির সঙ্গে সঙ্গে সেই রেমেডিটা যেহেতু এখনও তোমাদের স্কিন মধ্যে লেগে আছে একদম ভালো মতো, যখন তোমরা এভাবে করে উল্টো দিক থেকে ঘষবে তখন সেই লোমগুলো কিন্তু কী হবে, ওই রেমেডির সঙ্গে সঙ্গে উঠে চলে আসবে। একটু হয়তো বা পেইন লাগতে পারে, কিন্তু সেটা খুব বেশি না, হালকা লাগবে আর কি। যেহেতু তোমাদের লোমগুলো উঠতেছে তো ওটা তো ব্যথা লাগবেই হালকা, বলো। তো যাই হোক, তো এভাবে উল্টো দিক থেকে এভাবে ডলা দেওয়ার মাধ্যমে তোমাদের হচ্ছে লোমগুলো উঠে যাবে। আর কপালের দিকেগুলো তোমরা একটা পাশ থেকে এভাবে করে ডলা দিবে, তাহলে উঠে যাবে। আর আপার লিপসেরগুলো তোমরা হচ্ছে একটা পাশ থেকে এভাবে করে নিলেই কিন্তু উঠে যাবে, এদিকেরগুলোও। আর গালেরগুলো তোলার জন্য এভাবে করবে, এতে করে কিন্তু তোমাদের লোমগুলো উঠে যাবে। আর খুব ভালো রেজাল্ট পাওয়ার জন্য সপ্তাহে 3 বার তোমরা রেমেডি অ্যাপ্লাই করবে। তো ঠিক আছে বন্ধুরা, আশা করছি সবার উত্তর পেয়ে গেছো। ভিডিওটি ভালো লেগে থাকলে লাইক দিয়ে দিবে, চ্যানেলটাকে অবশ্যই সাবস্ক্রাইব করে রাখবে। টাটা।